स्टार्ट कर रहा है, तू मत स्टार्ट कर, तू स्टार्ट कर, रिकॉर्डिंग स्टार्ट कर।
Namaskar. I am Omkar Bua, a PhD scholar at Sitara. It is great to have all of you here as the center completes 40 years of learning, impact, and community-centered work. This milestone belongs to everyone who has taught, researched, visited a field site, or supported the center in any way. Thank you for joining us today. I now request Professor Anand B. Rao, Head Sitara, to come forward and give the official welcome.
Namaskar. Welcome to this very special occasion of celebrating the 40th anniversary of Sitara, which is already overdue. We conceived this as a kind of an informal family get-together where we wanted to trace the roots from where we come, the genesis of Sitara, especially given the fact that the average age of current Sitara family is much lower than 40. So we thought that it is an appropriate time for us to understand how the whole journey began. And then we took this occasion to celebrate this particular event. I'm really happy to see many of our well-wishers, mentors. When I say old friends, I am also old, but then they are older. So here in this hall, some of whom have traveled long distances just to express their love and engagement with Sitara. I really appreciate this. Somehow our this date that we chose was kind of jinxed. There were many hiccups because of the airline delays and many such things, so some of our panelists could not come here. But I'm happy that still some of the alumni, right from the first batch of MTech program, people are here, so I'm really happy about this. So typically 40 years is a very important milestone, at least in an individual's life. I mean, when we say we are 40, we get a kind of a hunch that, okay, so probably this is the time we need to make some modifications in our lifestyle. And then typically we need a corrected vision also around this time. So that's why in Marathi we call it Chaishi. So I'm not aware in lifetime of an organization what would be that milestone. But I think it is an appropriate time for Sitara to pause and take a review of how we have evolved to this particular juncture, and then plan the future course of action. So I think from that perspective also, this program is very, very important. And I'm really grateful that Professor Date is here. I mean, that has encouraged our enthusiasm to go ahead. True to his name, he has given us a lot, and he continues to mentor us. So I'm really happy he's here, and the other panelists, all the previous heads of Sitara who have nurtured us, nurtured the center and brought it to this stage. I'm really happy that Professor Sohni, Professor Agnihotri, Professor Shah, who has been with Sitara for such a long time. So they readily accepted to be here today to celebrate this occasion. I'm really happy. Professor Adinarana, in spite of not being officially part of Sitara, he has been always kind of a well-wisher and then full supporter in various ways. I mean, he has taught so many batches of Sitara students. So likewise, I'm really grateful for all of you to come here and grace this occasion. I know this is a very tight time schedule that we have ambitiously made. Professor Kedare, who is also right from early days of Sitara, he has been with Sitara. and he is the director, so he has to attend some other programs which are parallelly running here. So he'll join us a little late, but then without further ado, I think we'll start our program as per the schedule. So may I request Professor Agnihotri to come forward and start the beginning of the first session. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Anand. I think the panel chair, I think, has been arranged alphabetically. So Agnihotri will chair panel 1, moderate. I'm really happy that we have our panelists. None of them had to take a Air India flight. Therefore, they are very much here. So I'll request Professor Date, Professor Subodh Wagle, Professor Milind Soni, and Professor Naren Shah to come and join us here on the stage. And it's quite appropriate that this first panel has Professor Date, because Sitara, if you look at this, if you imagine Sitara as a tree, the seed was sown by Professor Date, and he will be happy to see how it has grown. So, and then Professor Naren Shah and Professor Subodh Wagle, they have been associated with Sitara since almost inception. So it's appropriate that they are there. Professor Milind Soni has been the head. And I remember in one occasion when both of us sneaked out of a meeting at where eating vada pav, someone snapped, and then the caption was getting two heads together, right? So, yeah, so I think the hand mic is getting organized, but it doesn't matter. I'll, yeah, conduct it from here. So the rough structure that we have till tea time, Sitara has gone through multiple phases, and many of you know this, and there are certain watersheds. So 1985 till 2007 was one particular watershed. 2007 was when the academic program began, and many of you who were in the initial batches of Sitara would recall that particular period. And then from there we go, say, up to 2015 or so. That marks a transition in an interesting physical sense, that we moved out from electrical engineering Annex A to our current place in old CSE building. So we'll cover this particular portion. We are kind of telescoping back. And it will be appropriate that we start with Professor Date, his initial remark, because as I said, it's the seed that he did sow. It has grown into a tree. Let's find out whether we meet his expectation or he's saying, nahi, 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 ye dil mange more. So over to Professor Date.
Very clever man.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you think about Sitara, many thoughts come flooding in. It all began here in IIT, and the main idea was to get students and faculty to interact with rural people, identify engineering problems, and bring them here to solve them as part of BTP or MTP or whatever. That was the main motivation for Sitara. Well, Sitara was not even known to me. I remember Professor Mishra said, we'll give you the basement of mechanical engineering. What would you like to call it? Spontaneously I said, Center for Appropriate Technology. And he said, that would be CAT. You don't want CAT to come out in the open. But this is my association with Sitara. I mean, the main thing is, it all began with what at that time, I think Professor Adinarayana is here, at that time people used to call it Appropriate Technology Unit, ATU. And then that is where Professor Mishra didn't like ATU, so he said, what would you like to call it? And spontaneously I said CAT. And he said, no, CAT is not acceptable. So then उसमें से निकला सितारा. So it's like this. But I think the motivation has sustained throughout. People want to go to villages. People want to identify engineering problems, and people want to solve them. And that is the main issue with Sitara. काहीतरी सुचवा मला. परत हां.
आम्ही बोललो तुम्हाला सुचलं की तुम्ही.
So this is important from a very simple, for a very simple reason that many of you who are sitting here would now see how an idea begins and how the institution building happens over a long period. Okay. So I will now request, and the cat is already out of the bag, sir. So I will request Professor Subodh Wagle to recall that particular period where it was not an academic center. And in IIT, many of you know that if it is not an academic center, कोई उतना उसको तवज्जो नहीं देता है. But what was important was, and what carried credibility, is what Professor Tate used to do even before Sitara. I mean, I'm talking of the 70s when we were studying here. And here is, we are looking, we used to kind of admire him, कि, बाहर से आए, accent है, fluid mechanics का दादा है, और करजत में जाके tribals के बीच में बैठता है. I mean, so let me share that with you. So that carried the credibility because I'm notorious for quoting shares, but there is one very interesting share which says, वो राह दिखाते हैं हमें हजरते रहबर, जिस राह पे उनको कभी जाते नहीं देखा. And in academics, this is very common that, ऐसे करो, and when you turn around and say, आपने किया क्या, you say, no, it's like Gary Sobers, that do what I say, don't do what I do, right? So, but then this carried credibility, and therefore, even before the academic program began, Sitara had a huge respectability, and that is where but that path we will come to. So, Professor Subodh Wagle and then Professor Naren Shah about this journey between 85 and 2006 practically.
I am at the age where I can speak for hours, so you have to stop me. And the topic is also very, So as you were referring to that time, Sharad is here, you were there, 79, I'm talking about 77, 82 type, when I was doing my BTech. And so as Satish said, Date sir was a hero, icon for us, okay? And his class on appropriate technology was attended by a lot many students. Unfortunately, when I was in 4th year, he was in Karjat. So I couldn't get to attend that class. He didn't offer in that year. But my seniors and juniors in hostel would go to his class just to hear him talking in his accent and in his, and bringing on all other things which nobody else in the institute talked about, okay? And he used to, it was not an easy class, I'm told. He used to take them around to Karjat and 2 days travel in Karjat, and, he used to make them toil for the grade. But still, people used to go for that class. And another thing, I remember that. At that time, it was a very novelty. Do you remember, sir, you used to wear corduroy pants, okay? Corduroy pants. So that was also a novelty. But as Satish said, the real difference was he was in Karjat. And I joined IIT in 77. And 78, some of us formed a group which is still existing, I'm told, Group for Rural Activities. And we started working in a village called Kharwandi, near Kondhani village in Karjat, which is at the bottom of the Rajmachi Fort. And Sir was active in a nearby village called Kashede. And that time it was entirely different area. And going from Kondhani to Kashede was itself a half-day journey. Now it can be done in half an hour. But I still remember him in Kashede. There was an institute called Academy of Development Sciences. And there I saw what is technology, grounded technological work. That was my first experience of grounded technological work that was very relevant and very sophisticated, both. Because before that, as a fellow of Gandhi Peace Foundation, I had wandered around many parts of the country. I had seen Gandhian workers working on technology. So, for example, there was in Vedchi near Surat, there is, Shambhu sir will tell us exactly details, but there was a Gandhian institute which used to work on tanning, okay? And so I had been in all these institutes. Prem Bhai was there in Madhya Pradesh and various institutes. But here I was seeing what was really sophisticated age technologists working with Adivasis and doing actual work with Adivasis. I remember you working, describing how Adivasis envisage drawing, okay? And I remember him showing us how an Adivasi woman will draw a cow. Cow as in a flat, and her face turned this way, okay? And he found that everybody draws like that, even if you keep them separate. So there was something cultural. And then I remember talking about cubism of, I'm forgetting names. Cubism? Picasso, yes, Pablo Picasso's, yes, Picasso. So, those kind of inputs. Then he had worked on many things like, he started his work on bullock cart in Kasheli, I believe. So the point is, it was very grounded. And so now we talk about triad of economy, environment, society, then development, equity, and sustainability, etc., etc. That time we didn't use these words. But still, it was part of our, Anand gave us this word, ethos. Talking about ethos, that was part of our ethos. Because he was really grounded in that ADS, in that whole experience, and it was built upon his work with Schumacher. Okay? So it was bridging of the frontier age thinking and frontier age grounded work. And so we are really fortunate to have that kind of experience with him. We also did one project. It was in rural energy resources in Sinnar Taluka of Nasik district. I remember going to a village called Wavi, and he giving me very detailed, protocol, that's my favorite word, protocol. He gave me a very detailed protocol, and which I showed to IAS officer. That time there was no copying. So he wrote down all that protocol in his own word. I still remember his name, Borwankar, Meera Borwankar's husband, who later gave up IAS. So he was in the same village doing some other work, and he, because of IIT, etc. Then I was filling up that protocol, and he asked, "Kya hai?" So I showed it. He was so impressed that he took it down and literally wrote. So the point is, all this was part of ethos, and it sort of grew organically among us. I also had a similar background. Many of you may not know, I was arrested 3 times during emergency. So I was thrown out of college. And still I managed to come to IIT in 77. In 78, we formed this group for rural activities. And there was Professor Malvatkar, if you remember. We used to have this sandwich training where they used to send us to factory for 2 summers. So I went to Mahindra & Mahindra. I couldn't manage. So I gave up in 1 month. So Professor Malvatkar sent me to RDAT in IIT Delhi. There I met Professor Rajendra Prasad. So Professor Rajendra Prasad sort of groomed me. He was like my elder brother. And Professor Date. And so that was a ethos, that was a history through which people like me got attracted to him. And it was very natural that I will work with him. Thank you.
So I think anyone who has done that public policy course knows that how Professor Subodh Wagle builds the story and brings in the protocol. So, and then others take over from there. So I'll now request Professor Shah, but is there any related comment which Professor Date, what Subodh has said, would you like to add something, or after Professor Naresh Shah talks?
He has spoken the truth, but slightly exaggerated.
Okay, so the truth, the whole plus truth, and something other than the truth. So Professor Shah can mention. And
I won't say other than the truth, but
okay.
What I'll do, Professor Satish, is I'll go here.
Sure. But there's one interesting part that when he talked about Schumacher, and I think Professor Date went to Germany, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So I think, so you can see how the things, dots connect. And then Professor Shah will describe the period between 85 and 2007, where there was certain windows where Professor Date was not the head. But he made sure that the organization kind of continues, and that's the sign of a true leader. And then again, we'll come back to that 2006 era where this whole issue of starting this MTech and PhD we will come to that. But Professor Shah, the interim period, over to you.
Good morning. Am I audible? The last row? Yeah. So, like a conventional professor, I have come with my notes. So, I say what I really thought of saying. So, I have my notes with me. So, Professor Anand mentioned about 40 being for individual. I think for organization, and he doubted whether for organizations, what does it mean? But what are organizations? Organizations are again made by men or women, made by people. So I feel extremely happy and content that we are celebrating 40 years of Sitara's existence. And as Professor Satish Agnihotri mentioned, that I was fortunate to be in its out of 30 years I was in the journey of Sitara. And when I joined in late 1991, Sitara was a child of 6+ years. 1985 plus 6 is about 91. Not about, exactly 91. So at that 6+ years, like in human life also, one looks for what are the grounds, what are the possible avenues and possible directions. So that was the time. I'm personally narrating my own stories of stay, and the story behind my joining, I think that time head Professor Date is here, and I'm not sure what he liked in my CV, but he somehow ended persuading the institution that let's get this man here. And I think a posteriori, or now at this when I'm reflecting, I feel the multidisciplinarity in my formation, in my education, and spending time in my education, in my doctoral work and all that, doing different disciplines, and that, applying science and technology for problem solving, at least what was seen in my CV, in my paper document that I gave, must have sort of convinced the institution of IIT Bombay to hire me at that time. However, I must admit, while I had the formation education, I did not know this methodology of dialogue with the end users, dialogue, communication with the stakeholders, and trying to sort of get their perspectives on what you're trying to develop as a technology and what you're trying to develop. So this engagement with the stakeholders, that methodology is a extremely, namaskar sir, in the technology generation development and then eventually transfer, engagement with the stakeholder doing needs assessment was a step one. And I think that is something which I really not only learnt but adopted subsequently in my work. For example, my PhD was in the area of bioenergy, and I thought that I'll continue. Immediately after coming here, 6 months, 1 year, I was struggling as to what area I must work on, and it's a right entry at Professor Kedare here. With him, I went to, because he was just on the verge of finishing his PhD, and we were sitting in a basement of mechanical engineering, which was mentioned here. We went to then Maharashtra Science and Technology Council, where I'm working now. A lot of stories coming together. We went there, and we went there with two problems. One was based on my PhD work on wood or biomass to charcoal conversion, and second was his own reciprocating wind machine, which was guided by Professor Date. And to my bad luck, only his problem got selected for funding. The commission then, where I'm working now, funded his work on on Powai Lake, fixing his reciprocating wind machine.
So now you know what poetic justice means. He is now the funding boss.
Right. So, and of course, the reason then was, Karzat, as which was mentioned by Subodh is in his talk, was apparently sometime around 1920s, 30s, 40s, was a national center for charcoal making. And that was the time when I joined, around 1970s, 80s. Various governments, including government of Maharashtra, had banned charcoal making. Because it takes something like, most of you know, or the young students may not know, it takes about 30, 40, 50 years for a tree to grow. Whereas you can cut it and within 21 days, you put it in the batch kiln reactor and make a charcoal. So in terms of sustainability, converting wood to charcoal, although it is a good fuel in urban communities because it does not generate smoke, whereas wood generates smoke. But I, as I mentioned, went with a proposal on how I can do that, but that time funding agency said no. And then subsequently, as I said, how I shifted from bioenergy to food, the story goes as follows, that sometime around 91, 92 I joined, and 94, 95 the Ministry of Food Processing Joint Secretary came here, I still remember his name, Mishra. And we had Professor Mishra as our director also that time. And he says, why not IIT Bombay have a laboratory on food processing, food engineering? And when I talked to him about my background, and he said, okay, today is Tuesday, you come on Friday to Delhi, submit a proposal, and within a week we will give a grant. Then Professor Mishra wrote me this one that, you go immediately he has said that he will give you whatever 50 lakhs, 1 crore, whatever you require, make a list of equipment, and that's how I think some of you who are using, Professor Amit is in charge of that lab now, are using food lab, and the food lab came, and I shifted as some of you know what is Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy, right? So bioenergy was not so much of a priority as much as food would be. So I changed my area of work because of the training that I had, multidisciplinary training, as I mentioned, in process engineering. If one can use process engineering principles for making biofuels, perhaps you can use the same principles in making food processing. So this food processing lab got developed. And then came sometime around 98, 99, up to 2004, there is an organization called KVIC, Khadi Village Industries Commission, some of you may know, which has a headquarter here in Mumbai in Villeparle. And they said that they wanted a technology interface unit to be set up at IIT Bombay. And then from Sitara, I was nominated to lead this project. And that honestly gave me in particular, I mean, these are my reflections vis-a-vis Sitara, that this gave an opportunity to interact on a concrete goals with other departmental faculties. I think Anirban Guha is there somewhere, yeah. So he worked on one of those KVIC projects. Then in chemical engineering, there were 2-3 faculty members, Professor Mahazani and then Professor Madhu Vinjamur, and with whom sort of we made project. Anuradha Ganesh, I think is some of you know in energy technology department division. Professor Shirish knows her. So we worked on some 5-6 technologies, and that gave an opportunity. So why I am narrating this is, while Sitara as an entity is in IIT, how does one take advantage of talking to the peers, talking to the colleagues, and sort of having them interact? And these two entities or initiatives like Food Processing Engineering Lab and the KVIC Interface Unit project allowed to do a good exploration and get engagement from other departmental faculties, which was quite important. Although that time we had a good debate with Professor Date because he questioned me that if you are using a lab methodology to engage your students and do this kind of a work, what is the USP of Sitara? You know, that is other chemical engineering department is doing that. They have a lab, they induct their PhD students, do their work. How it is different as a sort of, but to tell you honestly, sir, I think that gave us some good 2 award-winning work, and one was with Hindustan Liver on how to make chai, and then we got used to sort of how to make a patent, how do you sort of design a technology, and then sort of, you know, at that time, sometime around 1999, 2002, I was known in the institute as Chai Wala Shah. And why Chai Wala Shah? Because Hindustan Liver sent us 2 tons of export quality tea. And we did experiment how to pack them, how to keep this aroma and all that solved the problem. And then when the study was ended, I told Hindustan Liver chief, head R&D, what do I do with this premium quality tea? He said, no, you don't send it to us, you distribute to your colleagues. And therefore I was known as a Chai Wala Shah, and subsequently we had sort of basmati rice coming, and then again the story, 2 tons of rice coming here and doing the study in the food engineering lab. I'm telling you how we engaged the lab into this kind of work, and then from the Chai Wala Shah changed to rice chawal Wala Shah, you know, so, right. So then came, of course, 2007, we had more colleagues joining. Professor Anand Rao joined, Subodh joined as a faculty member sometime around 2007, 2008. Then Professor Narayanan, I don't see him here. Is he there? Hi. So he joined sometime around 2010, 11, 2008, yeah, 2008. And then, of course, Sitara began its journey, academic journey, I mean, offering postgraduate MTech and then PhD. And that part will come to. So, right. So that's the initial story, how the sort of, you know, lab and that kind of a methodology got into this one. So I'll tell you in my next this one what could be the sort of directions for future and the thoughts I would share at that time. Thank you. Of course, I just wanted to mention that 2015 or 14 you came, and how the vision of, you know, as a food processing engineer, I looked at child malnutrition as a problem to just through food, but your data analytics and all that, how that, one of the examples, one of the stories which you just allow me half a minute. So one of the example while evidencing, that there is an alternative to what you are doing, just the food formulation. I'll tell you the story little later, how we went to Sion Hospital and did that. But he said that, Professor Shah, आपकी अगर अठन्नी गुम हो गई है रास्ते पे और डार्कनेस है, तो खाली आप जहाँ पे पोल है, स्ट्रीट लाइट है, उसके नीचे मत ढूंढिए. ये भी हो सकता है कि आपकी अठन्नी कहीं और गिर गई है. So there are alternatives to sort of addressing. So he brought that counseling, data, deep diving into the data, and just not this one, but through ICDS, through whatever public platform data available, how you can sort of make a impact or a dent on addressing child malnutrition. Yeah? Sorry, I took a little extra.
No, that part will come to. But sometimes you see films, in Guljar's films, you tell the end point and then go into the flashback. So that's perfectly okay. We'll handle that style as well. But you now realize that Professor Date had, he had his own vision and way of looking at things, but he has 2-3 partners in crime who had different views. So someone like Professor Naren Shah brought in the lab part. And so when you have field part and the lab part, then you can see कि we are good both in चापादपि शरादपि कहते हैं ना, so शास्त्रादपि शरादपि. So lab में भी आपको अच्छा होना चाहिए और field में भी आपको अच्छा होना चाहिए. That kind of flavor you brought. The third partner in crime, Professor Shirish Kedare, he believes in just-in-time philosophy. So he said, अच्छा शुरू हो जाने दो, मैं आता हूँ. So I think now Professor Shirish, he has multiple hats vis-a-vis Sitara. One is, as I said, Professor Date's partner in crime. So he would have molded, the way Sitara thinks things. His second role would be looking at Sitara as an entity which is starting an academic program. And today on his head is the responsibility that abhi Sitara, tera kya hoga Sitara types. So, but right now we will confine to the yesteryears. Milind and I are late converts to Professor Date's venture. But Professor Shirish Kedare's recollection on Sitara in this particular phase, 85 to 2007, because the 2007-15 story becomes interesting. How was it navigated through the Senate? And I think that's a very surasani chamatkarik katha, as we call it in Marathi, but that we will come to later. So Professor Kedare, and then after that a mischievous question will come to Professor Date. He has to think about the answer from now. Ki in तीनों में क्या देखा that you pick them up. So over to Professor Kedare first.
और कोई नहीं मिला हमको pick.
Okay, should I go there? Because of back, it's better to stand. The danger is I can, but I will take care that I don't talk for 1 hour.
It's not the regular 1 hour lecture.
Yeah, that's what. So no issue. I know the danger and why you are asking me to sit and talk, but that's fine. Yes, Sitara actually, I'm even aware of the previous version called Appropriate Technology Unit. Just to go through it, I'll go very fast. And I know the person who was there in Appropriate Technology and in his stories. And maybe I should recite that, Pramod Pathak. Yeah. Right, and we had Professor Date, and of course, Professor Date is at the center, there is no doubt about it. But and there are many stories about him. But let's start with ATU. And the story goes like, on the hill, we had a bamboo house, right? And he designed and built it. And then they somehow decided to invite the director of the institute to see how this is. And he asked whether it will stand. And who was the director? Day. Professor Ekar Day. And he was, of course, mechanical engineer. He asked whether it stand the loads and other things. Then he got, of course, I have designed it. He got furious, Pramod Pathak, by his nature. And he went up the roof and danced on it. So So that is a passion the Sitara has seen right from the beginning. It did not, of course, it did not crack. In spite of Dr. Pathak, he did doctorate later. He was an MTech student. So that's a passion, and I think that is a passion infected by Professor Date, no doubt about it. So the Sitara, synonymous with Professor Date, is basically a commitment to the rural areas, right? People of rural areas, especially because of the vicinity, tribals of Karzat, and he has spent his life there. There is no, 2 years in place there, Kashere. Along with the technical cutting edge, technology cutting edge. So there are many examples. Of course, I'll read the various projects, like compact bricks project we did, Chulha, and Chulha is a different story altogether. Yeah, I also worked on wind machine, then thrashing machine for rice thrashing machine, various kinds of pump. Professor P. Vasudevan used to do various straight line motion because there has to be reciprocating pump to handle high depth. So these are all technical things which will be brought into the necessities of designing or addressing the needs. Carrying water, bailya. So the bailya which is used for carrying grass, large amount of grass for feeding the cattle, that can it be modified to carry water, because water carrying is a major problem. Dryer, the early yielding rice variety needs drying because it just matures at 90 days instead of 120 days, and at that time there is a rain, and so you have to have a dryer. And so how to design that dryer with a tube, which is well, I have that design in front of me. So normally such a dryer with sprouted bed will require a compressor because the pressure is high with the column of grain in it. But instead have a tube in it, just lift it 1 inch or half an inch appropriately. There can also be an optimization and a graph against it, that if the gap is this much, how much pressure is required, and there is a minimum somewhere, and then you have that graph, which is function of the diameter. So all these technical parameters brought into the design of a unit, machine, device, which is tuned to the need of the local people, local requirements, and using the local needs and local skills. So that's, I think, a statement. So I started conceiving technology not as the application of science, which is a common definition, but I understood technology because of all these exposures as a bridge between needs and resources standing on the pillars of science. And these needs are what the local needs are, and the resources are, of course, physical resources as well as skills. Local skills are resources by which you can do this. So technology is a bridge. Of course, it stands on the pillars of science and knowledge and experience and various things. So that's how this approach towards the technology. And then there is maybe I'll have a story of Chula, in which we made a Chula. Bhandari, Sanjay Bhandari was working on it when I was there, and I was working on wind machine. So he made Chula, and we took it to village. And very confident, we reached 40 to 43% efficiency, and it was with the water boiling, and there are a lot of experiments being done. And we reached 42, modified, have a twisted tape, and secondary air, and whatnot. And then slowly our understanding of the thermal behavior and this also developed. And then, we took it to village, very confident that this is the best chula for them. And then we said that we will make shira on it. And then villagers and the NGO there said that forget about it, let's make tea. And okay, let's make tea. So we put water on it, and it took half an hour to boil the water. And everybody gathered and started laughing. If it is taking so much of time, मैं काम कब करूँ, खाना कब करूँ, खाऊं कहाँ, जाऊं कहाँ. And then one old lady, आजीबाई said that हे काय घेऊन बसलायस? माझी चुलीचं काहीतरी कर. You modify my chula. Because for this, I will have to change my behavior. I will have to change my practices. That's too much. And it's also taking too much of time. Because we understood that to increase efficiency, we increase the airflow, which reduce the temperature, which reduce the heat transfer. For high temperature cooking and other things, maybe water boiling is okay. So the way we taste, so again we understood it's not efficiency, it's a food specific fuel consumption which is important. So cook a rice of say half a kg and decide how much wood is required for it. So then we started doing the tests which are, okay, how much wood is required to cook a meal. Food specific fuel consumption is the important parameter. So how these parameters are important, how they behave, what are the input parameters, what are the performance parameters, all these things. And this Chula thing, in fact, he was called to US in an ASME conference, right? To tell, of course, he modeled later on a phenomenological model because CFD was very difficult in that 0.6 liters per kilowatt power of the chula. So about 3 kilowatt will have 1.8 liters of the combustion chamber. And how do you model? Because it's a heat transfer, it's a fluid, combustion and heat transfer, everything in that 1.8 liter volume. How do you model it? And he was called at ASME conference to give a keynote lecture on modeling of chula. So that's the technological advance required to do the designs for rural areas. Sitara is not something which is just by the way we do it to show. And that was a message Professor Date will always give and practice. We used to go to villages, and it was always fun to go with Professor Date because he will tell everything totally differently. Right? That was a thing. So a totally different perspective will suddenly come out. So we used to go to different villages, Vijnana Ashram, Kalyana Ashram, then whatever, that Khopoli to paint, walk, and then one handmade paper factory, and then a large flour mill where the flour mill technology has come from maybe Holland, and then wheat comes from Punjab, the lager comes from Bihar, and the market is in Mumbai, nothing local. Right? Irrelevant technology, so that will be the message, you know, and delivered in a very dramatic way, one by one, and it will intensify and it will just ride on your mind. So that is the exposure. But another exposure I will, maybe you don't know this or I don't know, but yeah, we used to go to Nagdevi Street. And typically on a Wednesday or Friday, because IIT Bombay truck will be parked at Phule Market gate, and it will leave from there at 4 o'clock, and it will come to estate office and stores and dump whatever is there in the truck into the, and then you can collect. So we used to go in the morning, 7 limited, Vikriti Agar to whatever that other Bagbe Agar, right? And then get down at Nagdevi Street, go around the shops. Oh, this is a pump. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is a kind of new kind of belt is available. How can we use it? So we used to look at various things in the Nagdevi Street, Lohar Sar, Bajipala Street, and this and that. And then there was a hotel there. Kaya hotel there? Some hotel there, and we will have. Panchikar nahi, Udupi, something we'll eat, and then all those things will be dumped into the truck. So technology has all these things. Okay, devices are important, the components are important, how do you use it, what is available in the market, exposure to rural areas, what are the needs, what is happening, the time-wise, what's happening. So this exposure, the technology when we say, yes, needs are there, but how do you address it, what are the behaviors? So completely technological approach in designing the thing. I think this is what very interesting part that Sitara carries. So yes, as he says, exposure to reality, experimental approach, doing things, teaching and telling, analyzing, all these components. And I will say that it was, well, it started as a voluntary approach in all these things because that's what there. And it lingered around something like an activism and professionalism. But all these things combined together, and there is normally a fight between activism and professionalism as put up, but it's all together. Both are important. It's not that only voluntary activism is important, professional approach is also needed, and it's also not professional approach only which succeeds. It's other, that sensitivity of mind is also very important. Another phase, of course, was aptech course, which is very important, and the way it was done by Professor Date over the years, and even before Sitara was not there, it was a mechanical course, and I had fortune to sit with him 4-5 courses, partially deliver it also. So it is a different thing, and there are various components in these courses. So about the reality, about the history of Indian villages, about the history of European villages, then technology case studies, so various things, catamaran case study and various other things. I think all said and done, yeah, what is development was the question that we slowly graduated. And that was echoed through various discussions we used to have. And we simultaneously started group for rural activities, which was very important for, in a way, a development of Sitara. And so Professor Date always allowed us to have all our meetings and this and that, because students' involvement was in Sitara was one of the major things Professor Date and Sitara will try to have. All students, not only Sitara students, because there was nothing like Sitara students initially. Right? So we never had course. But this aptech course, the GRS students, all used to sit there and work on something, and you will excite them to solve a problem, take it up. But then finally, of course, later the Sitara course started. I started with ATU, but then I may mention that 1983 actually our office was started with Subodh Wagale, and we used to sit together, discuss various things. Subodh Wagale was our hostel 3 years senior, and so we knew him, and then he joined as a first SRA for Sitara in 1983, CAD office, and we used to discuss, and from there concept of GRA started, Group for Rural Activities started in 1983, and we did a lot of other things. I need not go into it, but yeah, so the question that came in, and then we had 2 major thoughts of line. Center for Science and Environment started, and it started publishing the status of India's environment, series 1, 2, 3. I think 3 or 4 was concentrated on water, and then they started concentrating on various issues, and we used to read it, discuss it. But then our other thing, PPST bulletin. There are the patriotic people-oriented science and technology journal started by Dharampalji. And the Dharampalji's journal and the Madras group, Srinivasan and J.K. Bajaj and many other things. And that group also then, actually I went there and did their workshop also later, but this PPST bulletin was very interesting. And the whole concept that patriotic and people-oriented science and technology was embedded in its name. So this kind of exposure, the Sitara gave, there was a library in which these journals were there and many others. There was a Volcker report, right? Volcker report, which was in some 18th century, who went around the whole country with a mandate that what is a way Indian agriculture can be improved so that we get more output, and the conclusion was there is lot to learn from India than trying to improve the system. Airy system, cropping system, 4 crops in a year. So all this thing, yeah, this was exposure, intellectual exposure, technology exposure, engineering skill development, compressed into the course. Then we started MTech in development and all that thing. So throughout, the question that I took away, maybe since 1983, I'll say that it's what is development. And then we started working on with Vijay and then others, a few others, is participation of people in the technology development. So how do we decide that this is the thing or this is not the thing? Is it that I think so it is this development? What is a mechanism? And so we also developed the capacity to participative approach to technology development, and that is rural appraisal, rapid rural appraisal and various such things, RRA and what PRA, participatory rural appraisal techniques which we practice, but we took it further, just not for appraisal, but even beyond as a vehicle for change, for involvement of people, identifying leaders and whatnot. So this participatory approach for technology and participatory approach for development is something that came out of all these experiments, and I think we need to work on this because today the dryer is reported. Because now the rain started this year from May 15th and continued till October end, right? So we will have to, even if there is no 90-day early yielding variety of rice, even for a normal rice will require this. So these are new issues now, and we need to now understand new issues and strengthen the local population to face the climate change issues. We need the Sitara, I don't think is irrelevant or anything, I don't know anybody saying that, but it's more relevant. Because now the thing is, climate change is not going to go away. It's not going to stop or reverse. It's only that we need to prepare people, society to face it. And there, this technology development, now the appropriateness context has totally changed. But still, that context, the strength that technology is a response to people's needs, that concept needs to be now further worked, and more so by underlying the participatory approach. If Sitara is the only place I see in the country where this concept of participation is embedded into the genes of a center course, and I think we should not lose it. If you can underline it, take it ahead, the techniques, the documentation, the methods is extremely important, and it's our responsibility to take it ahead at this stage and set a line of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shirish. I think he has done justice to the 3 hats, but the third hat part, where Sitara goes from here, we are going to in the panel 3. But if Professor Date has any quick response to my mischievous question, कि इन तीनों में क्या देखा? इन तीनों में क्या देखा? या तिघांमध्ये काय बघितलं तुम्ही हे उचलले 3 रत्न? 3 नग उचलले कसे? If there is a brief answer, otherwise we will move on to this interesting part of the academic course. ते नगांसमोर बोललं तरी चालेल, सर. नाही हे 3 तुम्ही सगळेच उचलले सर. The entire tree, basically you have lifted it, but these 3 who were at the foundation, what exactly, I mean, when you took them, what did you see? Okay, acha, so when you take your MTP, please remember this, okay? And Professor Shah, because he needled you.
प्रोफेसर शाह म्हणजे ते फ्रान्सहून आले होते
हां.
म्हणजे आणि ॲग्रिकल्चर बॅकग्राऊंड कुठे आहे ना बसवायचं
Yeah,
होते ना, पण
AIT.
ते आपले लोक बघायला तयार नव्हते.
Okay.
त्यांचं म्हणणं हे रुरलचे आहेत आणि फ्रान्समध्ये कोळशावर काम केलेलं आहे, ह्यांना रुरल सितारामध्ये टाकून द्या.
Right. So please notice this, chance plays a role and what you make out of it, and he could make the best out of it. And theory wala.
Couldn't get rid of him.
Right. So when you hear this in yeah, so Kharwandi. So basically, Subodh chipak gaya Kharwandi se hi. So there's the important part of it is initially when you build a system or a unit, what you notice is Professor Date looked at the complementarity. So it's a question of how do you fill in, how you add flesh to the skeleton. And Professor Kedare narrated this whole journey in a very interesting way, so that a critical mass was crossed. They were structured courses earlier, so the idea of starting a MTech course didn't suddenly paratroop down. And so this is where I'm going to now move on to that particular phase where Professor Milind Sohne will also come in. So this thought when came कि अब हो गया, अभी एक 2 साल का MTech course or PhD course करना चाहिए. I think the appropriate person to begin with is from you. And then if there were debate, tug of war, marpeat, and how did you navigate through the CNET? So that part, and then Professor Sohni will come in, because he also did a very, very important midwifing when this thing was kind of moving from toddler stage to the sprinter stage.
Just before I go to that stage, I want to also talk about that it was not a sort of a El Dorado, there was a smooth ride. It was not the case, okay? There were always, I wouldn't use any metaphor, but there was always people who were not sure that this kind of activity should be done inside the place like IIT, okay? And he had tough time convincing them at various occasions. And I have been witness to that. I have been victim of that. I won't name people, but I was told on my face that when he was away on his first sabbatical to Germany in 1985, 1984, I don't remember exactly. I was on face was told that what is this? This is frivolous. This has no place in IIT. Okay, so this kind of people were also there, and as Shirish narrated, people were not sure about the strength of the bamboo. Similar things he had to navigate. That's what he said, and that reminded me. Lots of, I'm genuine. It was not personally driven. It was not, there was no vested interest, nothing. It was genuine suspicion, genuine disagreement that this doesn't belong here. And as Shirish rightly pointed out, he was successful in saying that this kind of a sophisticated front-edge technology has relevance for rural areas. Even today, obviously, even today. I am the worst person to say this because I was never a good engineer, and he sort of withstood me for a long time. Still, though I was not a good engineer. Coming back to your 2007 thing, I remember again, this is the occasion to reminisce, okay? I will reflect and I will remind later, but reminisce. So reminisce is remembering with some kind of enjoyment, cherishment, nostalgia, etc., etc. In that sense, I'm using the term. So I remember Date sir coming to the Pune. I was working at Prayas, and this was sometime May 2006. And he came, and he used to drop in sometimes. So I think Pune, some relatives were there. He used to come in summer, and a couple of times we used to meet. I went to Pune in 89, so 89 to 2006. At least 3 times we had met. And he used to take me to a place called Place. Those who are Puneites will know a place is a place where they used to get good beer and good sizzlers, okay? So I used to enjoy that time with him. But similarly, 2006 he came, and he had something very serious to talk about. And I remember sitting on, outside the stairs of a closed shop. He and me sitting, and he explaining me what can be a MTech program in technology and development. Okay, and he convinced me that I should take time away from Prayas, which was my baby. So see, he convinced me to sort of give up my main job, which I had taken up as my lifetime work, and he convinced me that at least I should join part-time. And I joined on 2nd of August 2006, and he was few days before me, right? 1st of July?
1 week before.
1 week before me, okay? So we were together sitting in that very famous basement of mechanical engineering department. Half of that was occupied by machines, and half of that was occupied by 2 of us. So that was the beginning of the course. And that was, if you know, that was a Golden Jubilee year. And institute was very, ready to accommodate something like that. Because आप भारत इंडिया के लिए क्या करते हैं is almost every session the MPs will ask to director, and those directors used to send that to Sitara क्या करते हैं. So that was a good occasion. आपके पास स्टार था, मेरे पास सितारा है. So Sitara was given opportunity, and then we had a 1 full year of sort of lots of debates. As I said, it was not a cakewalk. We used to fight a lot. And I used to fight on many things with him, but I was very clear that we have to go by his vision, okay? And everybody talks about the 9-week, 10-week 609 program. And I should say that this is original his idea, okay? And that was grounded again in that same what Shirish said, okay? The 2-day ATP appropriate aptech course tour, okay? And so these were no-nos, I mean, non-negotiables. And I was too young to understand that whole politics, Senate politics. We were not that sort of pali to talk about that politics, because we had our boundaries, because he a faculty member, even I won't do that. Faculty member will not talk about faculty politics with a SRA, okay? But there were other friends of his, like I will mention, A.G. Rao, and there were other few who used to talk about that, and he used to overhear all those things. So as I understand, he had to go through serious resistance, opposition to this program. And he managed to, with help of all, there were other professors who were really good. I don't remember if Professor Gopalan was there at that time. Yes, Professor Gopalan, he was there. I think Eldo was there. Adinarayan was there. Narayanan, K. Narayanan was there. All these people, Vasudevan was there. So all these people supported, and there were stories I don't want to say. Yeah.
So what Subodh told about this phase of
doing a master's course and then designing it and then taking it through the Senate. So any recollections or any particular observation that you will make, because for any new program being started, I think it will be an interesting way to look back.
Yeah, the thing was to show how difficult it is to go to a village, talk to rural people, understand their language and priorities, and identify a solvable engineering problem, and then solve it, and then extract their reaction to it.
Yeah, but my question is, this TD609, I think that's the USP of Sitara, everybody accepts that. In Senate, how did you persuade them to have it as a 22 grade course as part of the master? But that's the part which not many people talk about, and I think TD609 has vindicated your stand. So very briefly, if you recall.
I think there was a climate in the country itself
Okay.
at that time that such things be encouraged.
Okay.
And we got the benefit of that.
Okay.
That is one.
So chance and homework in public policy
Yes.
initiatives.
Yes,
So
yes.
there was a homework already. He got the chance. He made the best of it.
People said engineering and public policy has nothing to do with each other. That was the overall attitude.
अभी भी बोलते हैं.
तो क्या बोलूं मैं अभी?
I just want to mention two reports.
Yeah.
Sir, mic देता है एक मिनट. Thank you. Yeah. So I remember this from going through the reports which were so meticulously prepared by Professor Date, and there were two committee reports. One is Naidumma committee, and second was there was a team of, I think, UNESCO or UNICEF which visited IIT Bombay and clearly said these are bulleted three areas where the institute must take initiative. And one of those three areas, one was of course environmental sciences, and another was technology for rural areas. So these two, I think when I read the proposal that Professor Date had made for Senate, I distinctly remember that he mentioned very articulately that such a course on MTech deserves a place in IIT. It's not only that, we had a psyche that to listen to outsiders or something, but he made it so articulately, that particular report, so I must mention that here.
Yeah. No, and luckily there was a critical mass in terms of what is to be offered. It was that vision of 609, where, as I said, that's why when we keep talking about public policy and we talk about the garbage can model, I always mention that chance and homework becomes important, and that is where you can clinch it. But I think let's now kind of move fast forward and then say, okay, now that this hump has been crossed, and there's this first batch in 2007, so what were the kind of, worries, trepidations, and what will happen to them? So I think we'll give Professor Milind Soni a chance because he was in that period. Yeah. So all those worries which happen in the initial phases, and I have some kind of glimpses of it because I was myself the second batch of the Environmental Science and Engineering Group in 1978. So as students also we had some of those worries and concerns, and I'll invite maybe a couple of students of those batches to say कि आपको कैसा लगता था. But before that, I think Professor Milind. And most of you must have seen his HOD address at the admission stage, which I modified further, and Professor Anand has modified even further. So let's. Huh? Yeah, I think. No, but we can just.
So thank you very much for this opportunity. But I think, Professor Date, to me, please sit. I'm not going to take long. So I think I come from a very different background. I'm not a mechanical engineer, and I was not part of. I had seen Sitara and so on, but I did my BTech here, 82 to 86. But I was not involved in any Sitara activity. In fact, till 2004. I did not even visit the center at any point. Though Subodh and Shirish and all of these were good friends for a different reason, that I was an avid hiker and trekker, and H5 used to be the center of a lot of hiking, H4 and H5. So I had visited Karzat for a very different reason, as a because it is the home for Bhima Shankar, Belachiwadi, and many other places. So my view of the rural India was very different, not from an engineer's viewpoint. Next. So I think that before me, I think appropriate technology, its motivations, how it works, participation, all of these were very important. But the state itself, the world model of those days was very simple. There were people, there were politicians, there were private and state, and then there was civil society. And civil society, of course, consists of IIT and students and faculty members. And that they had to interact directly with people, they had to participate, understand problems, try and solve them, right, and appreciate them. And so it was a fairly simple worldview in my opinion. And but I was very impressed by the deep and sustained fieldwork, excellent documentation. I think the Shirarwadi Energy Report is a masterpiece. Many such reports, formalism, that somebody else putting a structure to understanding how a village, how to record a village, or how to record a biscuit factory, or even a chakki, and so on. And that formalization and documentation of technology and its needs was very important, though the worldview was quite simple. So there was also a high, and I think that the perspective was appropriate technology. The perspective was a sensitive engineer, right? It was, as we said, we are all engineers, and how to be sensitive, how to really design better. But I think it had limited professional opportunities. That was also one important point. When we came to designing the 2006, the MTech program, that was one big question, that what will be the opportunities? And also, I think one limitation of appropriate technology was that it cannot be taught to other colleges. If you go to Rajaram Bapu Institute of Technology, what does appropriate technology mean? They are living the world of appropriate technology. So this was an exalted perspective which IIT students could afford and which faculty members could teach. You see, luckily the chula doesn't need, computational, CFD to actually, to help the lady, do better cooking. So I think, Ujjwala program has done a better job in many ways. So I think that was one issue which I saw. Next. So my journey itself was 2005 to 10. And it began with a very simple question: what does it take to provide drinking water to a tribal hamlet? And when that was simply because I had gone to a village where I had stayed in and lived, Belachiwadi, just at the bottom of Bhima Shankar, and I had lived there for a week during my BTech days. And I went back there and I was just shocked. So I then I said, well, there is a Sitara in IIT Bombay, let us talk to Professor Date and see, I want to understand this problem. Can Sitara help me? So that was how our journey started, 2004. And so many questions, from the Tehsildar to, do we know really enough? Do we know the groundwater? Do we know how to simulate it? Does our civil engineering know it? Does our sociology understand, a Thakar hamlet? How to document a Thakar hamlet? So all of these questions came to us. Are we competent? Are we competent is a big question. And so who should help? Who are the agencies which really matter? So I think in this, my training as a CSE person, not as a mechanical engineer, but it was a CSE person to look at systems and try and understand what's the input output, who's responsible for what, so sort of a more programmatic approach. And that led us to a more complicated world, which I think is encoded in the MTech program. That it's a world which is not just civil society. It's a world which is of politicians at the university. It has laws and rules. GSDA is an agency, scientific agency. There are bureaucrats, there's a secretary, then there is the Tehsildar, and there are local operations, the agents, and so on. And that they are working with standard SOPs and so on. So essentially the state as an important agency of change, and that has to be manipulated or that has to be taught in the MTech program was a core learning. Right? So otherwise, we cannot have that. There are no jobs in appropriate technology. There are jobs in helping the state rule better or deliver better. So I think that for me was a big concern, and I think that was shared by Subodh, that how do we really professionalize it, and who is the biggest change agent? And that was, the state was the biggest change agent, and remains now the biggest change agent, and we need to really work with it. Next. So I think the outcomes, there were some outcomes at the pedagogy level, but there were some outcomes which were more sociological, right? How does this, so what is the role of the state and what's the, So the first thing is that what is an engineer? Engineer as a change agent, what are the skills that are required? So I tried to crystallize, the appropriate technology framework. So it is able to, face society, identify the problem, analyze it, use various, disciplinary skills, like from economics to civil society, for civil engineering, to synthesize and then to deploy. So this whole cycle has to be there in the curriculum in some way. So that was one key learning, how to really understand appropriate technology or codify it in terms of what is the learning experience. So it is to observe, analyze, then decompose the problem into various parts, synthesize it, and then deploy it. So all of these, for example, when Shirish was talking about the chula and what was the need, so how do we really understand any other, like a bus depot or even a journey of a lady to the market in a bus. So all of these need, there should be a systematic framework. That was learning number one. And learning number two was that the elite university and other university, even Rajaram Bapu Institute of Technology, has a role to play. And that role is that they serve society by observing it, documenting it. They are the repository. If I want to know the cropping pattern in Sangli, I should go to Rajaram Bapu Institute of Technology. Unfortunately, that view of education is still not there. So it is not, I think it is, whether engineering and policy go together is a much bigger problem. A lower level problem is that should Rajaram Bapu Institute of Technology record the cropping pattern of Sangli or whichever are the talukas. So even these questions still remain unanswered. So I think that the loop between university and society, university as a part of civil society, which documents, which understands problem, which translates them into solutions and prepares, new jobs, new job descriptions. So that is very important. Okay? And the elite university like IIT should provide thought leadership, right? So it should, long-term research, arts, and should be, involved in the destiny of what we want to be. So I think it is symbolic of what we value. So IITs, so in that sense, Sitara and the MTech program was really something of what we valued. So, as Shah said, Nayudamma committee report was very important, that it says that this is what we value, and IITs being the top of the apex should show that it values such, such concerns. So I think that the outcome of my own study was, and which went into the MTech program, was that civil society, which is not just NGOs, which is not just Gandhian socialism, but civil society institutions, as bird watchers, as, conservation people, as everything, as the university, are very, as consumer associations, or, Grahak Pet and so on. These are all, civil society associations which are very important. So they are really who tell you or help you document the problem, right? Next. So I think the, basic, from there were born, 2006, the core values. So these are the core values, that bottom 80%, right? Concrete problems, concrete stakeholder, end user defined, demand driven. So you see, and demand driven. So all of these were pointed out by Shirish and others as well, right? And towards change, engineering as a change agent. So if you want to describe something, it's easier, but if you want to change it, that's much harder, because then you have to think who's going to use it, who's going to, what are the actual moving parts, and then the engineer as a change agent, which I defined, really makes sense, because if you want to change something, you got to know it much better. I think, and you see that this is the slide which I used to show on all admissions. So where are the jobs? After all, if you want to make the degree a success, you have to show what are the opportunities, right? So deliver solutions, deliver, and so objective to produce development professionals. So now if you see, we coined the word development professional, and, and in fact the MORD fellowship in 2012 was, we started as the development professional fellowship. And so in the institute we started many new things. I think the 22 credit, TD 609, deputation of faculty members from one center to another, then this, deferred placement, everything. So many new things actually, came about from Sitara, and the requirement of, producing the development professional. So that was one thing. So I think then the course structure, I think Subodh played a real heavy lifting, in, that the sectors, perspectives, tools. I think, it was good that they agreed to most of the things, right? I mean, but we were all persuading, and we had, and so his experience, Date's experience, my experience, Shah's experience, all of them came together, very different. You know, we were all very different. I was not a mechanical engineer, I'm more a system engineer. So there were lots of structures. We created TD 609, 22 credits, what are students going to do? So that needs a, that needs a manual, and NC and OM were, preparing the manual, and there was, intense discussions about, all types of situations which can happen, right?
And Anand doing the meticulous job of reading all TD 609
right.
reports
And
very meticulously.
so I think, yes, so that was then creating opportunity for students to specialize. So I think there were many attempts made, I think DP was, remember, some students may remember, development protocols. I think protocol was another word which came up that you are describing. A protocol to document energy consumption in a household. A protocol. These are, protocols can be taught to Rajaram Bapu Institute, not only to IIT students. So that is very important. A knowledge product, making of knowledge products which are transferable to others was really the job of the TND program. So 2 minutes, last one slide. Next. So I think that this did yield many professional opportunities. I think a lot of students may not know, but I mean, I think now we are still reaping the benefits of that model, that we have many engagements with state governments, right? I mean, 1 or 2 crore projects which actually work with Department of Agriculture, Department of, name it. So we are working with state governments who are implementing change. So Department of Land Records, Agriculture, there are many programs. UMA is a program, Pokhara, Hemant, Pooja, all of them have done their PhDs in the Pokhara, World Bank engagements. And there are UNICEF also, we produce the drinking water, textbook on drinking water. And I think there are many other, what were your other, UMA was there, Unnat Maharashtra Abhiyan, which, so even government of Maharashtra accepts that this is how engineering should be taught. And please go ahead and try to, work with other colleges. So this is a good model, and we should not. So right now the danger again is that we will go back to the IIT ethos, go become siloed, I work on, rural electrification, I work on, food beneficiation, I work on this, lab-centric thing. I think the true engineer, as I said, as a change agent, is still a training which is required. I hope Shirish has left, or, oh. So I hope that he, as the director, we see more of this. Next. So last slide, I think, yeah. Is there another slide? Yeah. So I think, what's the big, so, regimes change. We have seen Indian regimes, change, and new regimes come and so on. But let me tell you that civil society still remains the creator of jobs. So be it the university, be it consumer organizations, be it, commuter agencies, they are the observing how public transport is delivered, documenting them, what is being measured, so what is reality, be it a PDS shop or a PHC, how is it recording data, what is it, how are its, what is the scientific agency, what are the tools of needed, then how are reports generated. So this loop, can you have some water? Yeah. So this loop is essential, and that, in fact, more. I think this loop, not only is it important for students, but is now important for citizens to understand how is their bus running, how is their PDS coming, or how is their what are their children being taught. I think this loop is now central. Fewer and fewer people understand governance now, and as a result, it is getting worse and worse. So I don't need to, so if you look at pollution, if you look at, whatever, railways and so on, so we really need, every citizen should understand how are we measuring things, what is science, what is really practical science, and how do policy decisions make, and so on. And ultimately, students need to ask, what is the place for me here? In this loop, where am I? Am I the scientific agency? Am I measuring? Am I the management part? So I think we need to really focus on that. So let me stop here, and Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Milind. You would also notice one interesting feature that all other speakers were into Sitara right from the word go. Milind was, in a sense, an outsider who got attracted to Sitara. And as head, there are two questions that we have to ask. What this outsider did to Sitara, and the other, which you are seeing in this slide, is what Sitara did to that outsider. Okay? The second outsider was me. So Milind did not mention that 2007 was when the course started, but 2010, there was this Sitara at 25, and that it gives me a sense of deja vu because I was Director General Shipping, and I very honestly took 2 days chutti and participated. And I remember Sharad was there, Rangan was there, and there was intense debate कि ये किस तरफ जा रहा है, ये ऐसा हुआ तो derail होगा. That passionate discussions were happening that time. Anand was also there, so both will remember it. And those 2 days when I was sitting there, probably I spoke more than I should have. So few days later at Mumbai airport, Professor Uday Gaitonde says, "Are, tula Date sir shodhat hote." Date sir was looking for you. So now when Professor Date summons, you go. And that was a time when he told me, I still remember that sentence, ki ata bas zali bureaucracy, ata resign kara ani ya. And I fell from my chair. I said, "Sir, but you know, you bureaucrats are trained." So I said, "Sir, 46 ओव्हर झाले तर 4 ओव्हर उरल्या त्या खेळून येतो." And Professor Date kept track of कि इस कमबख्त के 4 ओव्हर कब खत्म हो रहे हैं. And then when I came in 2016, but that's a later part. So again, that question will come in when an outside perspective comes in, what happens. And just two things on a lighter vein, that question of आप society के लिए क्या कर रहे हैं. Whenever a parliamentary question comes to IIT, it is always directed towards Sitara. So I think that is one thing we are living with. The other part of it is this fellowship idea, which was essentially Milind's baby, because when we looked at this whole fellowship, I mean, after MTech what, we had talked to Kapart, and my own batchmate in Kapart said, ki, हाँ ठीक है, 18,000 दे देंगे. And I said, "Excuse me, I mean, you are looking at a IIT Bombay MTech." She says, "यार उससे तो ज़्यादा कैसे दे सकते हैं, तुमको क्या चाहिए, 60,000 चाहिए?" That somewhere pinched me. But then luckily, and here again I'm telling you the chance and homework part. Subsequently, we did some persuasion, and the ministry was willing to give 35,000 in the first year, that's the second year of the MTech, and 40,000 in the after MTech 1 year. But then institute rules did not allow anything beyond 15,000. So then I had a side chat with the financial advisor. Always remember, in all institutions, end of the day is the finance person who matters. So I told him, I said, "Yaar, tum 75,000 de rahe ho na, 30 plus 45. He said, "हाँ." I said, "Usko 30 plus 45 की जगह मैं 15 plus 60 करता हूँ. तो बजट तो वैसा का वैसा रहेगा. And you will get, बच्चे अच्छे मिलेंगे." And then I quoted Lee Kuan Yew कि if you throw peanuts, you attract monkeys. I said, 60,000 दे दो. And luckily, he was fairly innocent of the ways of IIT, and he said, "हाँ sir, ये तो हो सकता है." I was not in IIT that time, but then I did nudge a few people, and then this whole thing of 15 and 60 came in. And that was something where our students realized that for 1 year I can work post MTech in a developmental field. Nahi acha laga to you go back. So deferred placement was also, I think that is Milind's contribution. And then how it expanded from MORD fellowships, we went to UNICEF fellowships, then Women and Child Development Department fellowships, Ministry of Agriculture fellowships, and you know the latest? Director General of Civil Aviation has asked for 2 Sitara students for their analytical ability and the field and the field conception. So it shows that how after you build the institution, sometimes you meander into some very pleasant and maybe sometimes not so very pleasant ways. So I think this session would need to come to a close. Professor Anand doesn't say anything, but when he looks at you, you remember कि अभी वो तीसरी घंटी बजने वाली है. So I think what I will do is I'll ask Subodh to just speak. He wanted to share this in this phase. And then we have probably a pleasant task of felicitation that we will come to. So over to Subodh.
Just this is an occasion to reminisce. So I remember the second batch when it went to 609. Second batch was the batch where we had one woman student. Two, Supriya Jain, Suparna and Archana. Okay, and yeah, sorry. We were really worried. How will they survive? And Suparna, if I remember, went with some male girl, Srinivasan, to Timbuktu. Okay, so how she will manage? And so was really concerned. Kya hoga? But I said our TISS student has been going to even Naxal-affected area, women. So don't worry, they are better management of people than your boy student, male student. And they did. They did well. And in 2011 or something, the number of women students in Sitara batch were more than the male students. So that was how the whole thing did. Okay, this is one thing you might have realized, that Shirish talked about Chula and he talked about Ujjwala Yojana. Okay, things changed. Over 40 years, things changed. And I am feeling that the things are changing real fast now. And that is a challenge. That is a challenge all of us have in front of us. Okay? The definition of rural, definition of technology, definition of what is good for rural, definition of rural people, definition of their knowledge, definition of their capacities, definition of the, now we say if you go to Adivasi young person, कुत्ता चिमनी पोपट के सिवा उसको कुछ मालूम नहीं होता. The basic what the local flora and fauna they don't know many a times. That's my observation. Okay, so in this situation, how we are going to do what these people have been doing, people have been saying. That is the greatest challenge I feel when I go to the field. Okay, so I won't be part of the panel, right? So,
no, but the contributions will be welcome.
So I'll reserve that for that. And so it was a great occasion to reminisce and share all the memories. There were a lot of memories so, over the chai we can talk about it. I have a lot to share on the anecdotes. Yes.
So thank you very much. So I think this session has given you a glimpse of Sitara's stabilization. Yes, sure.
If it is possible.
You can take the liberty.
So I just wanted to sort of, whatever debates and arguments we had about this lab methodology, I just wanted to tell a story on the technology transfer particularly to rural areas, how complex it can be. So at that point in time, my first PhD student had worked on ozonated water for, reducing the microbial load on tomatoes. He had just finished the PhD and we happened to receive somebody from Vidarbha area. And what you see, I think Professor Satish Agnadri talked about flight delays. I think Delhi flights coming here sometimes get delayed because of the residue burning. And we had a visitor from Vidarbha area where all of cotton is grown. And once the bowl of that cotton plant is taken out, the remaining stock, mostly people burn it, or at the most you sell it, make briquettes and sell it at cost of whatever, 5,000, 6,000 rupees per ton. So the question was posed by the stakeholder, Vidarbha, one of the FPC had come, and my student had just finished his PhD. And there was a serendipity in this, lab research on the tabletop, because the cotton stalk, it becomes that hard because of its lignin and cellulose bond. Since he had the ozone generator with him, he just dipped the cotton stalks in the ozonated water, and he found that the lignin and cellulose bond is chopped. It becomes softer. So then we thought about and we said that how can we do value addition to this? When I used to talk with Professor Date, he used to ask me, make a joke of me, and he says, what is Vadu addition? What are you trying to do? Vadu, cement to make and add Vadu. But I kept on with that value addition, and now I'm saying the importance of communication. I think one of the course, PAS NAPAS course you have on communication. Now sitting in Government of Maharashtra, I see that when you want to talk to a senior bureaucrat, it just happened that last month, that technology which was developed on tabletop about 15 years back, went on, I think Bharat is here, the BIF at Urli Kanchan agreed to test that cotton stalk treated using ozonated water as ingredient for making animal feed. So in addition to Urli Kanchan, we took the Nagpur Veterinary College also with it, did some trials, and now with the commissions, I took, I don't know, it is good to mention here that I took the advantage of being there for a positive side. So we put
Chance and homework. That's the example.
So another case of chance and homework. I told about serendipity in ozonated water. And the FPC, for example, which had come 8 to 10 years back, set up a 10 tons per day. What Bharat Kakadeji at Urli Kanchan has a small plant of 100 kg per day. Same plant at Nagpur Veterinary College. And now he has that plant. And then we went the importance of communication. We convinced Dr. Ramaswamy, who is the Principal Secretary of Animal Husbandry, that now you have it, try it on 5 different animal farms of the Government of Maharashtra. And therefore, the importance in technology development. I'm trying to bring here the multidisciplinarity which makes an impact. So you had chemistry involved, doing, lignin cellulose bond breaking. Then you had engineering involved in scale up, making the plant. How do you make briquettes out of this, the de-oiled cakes, as we say, source of protein, and you have this roughage. How do you make that? And once it is made that, how do you market it, for example, using government's its own arm? And so, therefore, I think this technology story, the technology development and this one. And the last one word is about KVIC I learnt about. 1960, there was a first biogas plant available at IRI, 1960. It took 15 years for sometime around 1972, 75, 84, for example, for KVIC to take up that model and disseminate. So, make a national program and make a national scheme. So, in the technology development and the dissemination story on a large scale, it requires a lot of patience and persuasion and the importance of whatever I said about communication, whatever you have developed, you need to communicate at right place in a right way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Shah. That communication part reminds me of that 6-minute animation which our students made on child malnutrition. You don't have to speak much in various fora where the new people are there. You just show the 6-minute video. But on a lighter vein, even now, Professor Shah once in a while asks me, कि अरे ये प्रॉब्लम है सतीश, इसको कैसे कम्युनिकेट करूं, मैं एडिशनल चीफ सेक्रेटरी के पास जा रहा हूं. So and this whole question which came right in the inception of since the inception of Sitara, कि it's like people were saying कि high tech का rural area में क्या काम है. It's almost like मेरे अंगने में तुम्हारा क्या काम है. Sorry, that becomes even more important today. One example he mentioned. We didn't want to talk too much about the element of high in the first session. One of the product developed by one of the PhD students for child malnutrition today has an application in pediatric oncology, which is the reason why Tata Center is now coming with us for doing straight away clinical trials. So I think the technology can play that kind of a role, and we should be fairly both optimistic and aggressive about it, that the high tech has a place, so rural need not get the second best. And let me point this out. It was because of this applying high tech to the rural area approach, which Sitara took fairly confidently, that the RUTAC project, which was RUTAC 1.0, when it got over, RUTAC 2.0, the first IIT to which RUTAC 2.0 was given was IIT Bombay. And Coal India gave us 2.5 crores. And after that project was over, they are giving us a follow-on project. So the relevance of technology, both from a theoretical point of view, from a practical point of view, and from the point of view of the career opportunities for the students, I think it is relevant in all the three. I think I'll stop here. This was an extremely fruitful kind of background building session. we have a pleasant job of felicitating our panelists, and I will invite Professor Anand Rao. But I must make this observation that one of the mementos that we are giving to Professor Date is a Sitara technology, Shashwat's 2-year MTech plus 1 year with BIF, which is the Jivodaya Silk. It combines Jivodaya Silk with IIT's own logo, Jnanam Paramam Dheyam. Thank you very much. Professor Amit. Your student, your technology. आप आइए.
I think technology would have died without all of your support. Right there.
So, Professor Date, from the tree which has grown, we are giving you one small fruit. So this is the Jivodaya silk where the cocoon is not boiled. Shashwat managed to, I jokingly say, he taught the worms how to lay the yarn on a nearly flat surface, become a moth and fly away. So we are literally saving millions of worms. They don't need to die. नाही इतरांचं तुमच्या नंतर सर मग तुमच्या रत्नांना
So while the panel is arranging themselves for the group photo, I have few more people I would like to invite here who have specially come for this program. May I request Mr. Mudgal, our long-standing office bearer in Sitara, Mr. Eknath More, who has single-handedly taken care of our workshop. We are fortunate to have Manoj Karmarkar, who was, I think, now this can be settled whether he was the first SRA or Subodh was. But then he was one of the early SRAs in Sitara. He has worked with Professor Date. So please come here. Okay, so we'll we'll do the evidence-based settlement of this. Yeah.
2nd August 1984.
And then may I also request Jairaj, who has contributed immensely in all the early prototypes that Sitara has made, to be here. So Yushang, please let us know when the photo is done. We want to felicitate the 4 guests here. No, since he's sitting here, you can take the photo there. No, please. We'll do the things.
We will not get that appointment.
So
Okay,
may I so just a second. I think
may I request Professor Date to felicitate Mudgal sir?
yeah. So we have managed to put so many heads together.
Requesting Mr. More sir. Mr. Jairaj. So we can't believe Jairaj is now a grandfather. And Manoj. So, just continuing this, I would like to request Professor Adinarayana to come here. As a non-Sitara faculty, he has been one of our main champions, and he has contributed immensely to the teaching in Sitara. Is Professor Eldo here? Okay, so we are almost half an hour late in this session, but it was worth to have this journey uncovered with all of us. So we plan to have a 15 minutes quick tea break and reassemble here by 12:15. So thank you so much. May I request those who are interested in having tea or coffee, please move to the backstage, back of the hall in the foyer. We need to come back in 15 minutes, so we have very limited time. Actually, the racket असतं ना.
सर बोलना
this tea break was not adequate. There are so many things to catch up on. But we'll have the lunch break, which may provide enough opportunity for that. Namaskar. So, looking at the clock, I think there is some rescheduling we are doing. We'll almost compress or get done with panel 2, which was essentially we are going to have short presentations from current Sitara faculty just to tell what we are doing right now. But I think in the interest of time, we'll almost skip that. But I'll request all the faculty members of Sitara to come here. We'll just have one line introduction so everyone knows, because there are people here who have not seen the latest additions in Sitara. So may I request all the Sitara faculty to come here on the stage. Yes, Param, Professor Charu. So, yeah. So is everyone here? Yeah. Yeah, please. So they can get a group photo also. So when we line up here. So I'll request the youngest of the lot, Dr. Kuru Dindi, to start. So just 2 lines. We don't have much time.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank each one of you to come here and join us in the celebration of 40 years Sitara. I'm a public health professional, and I belong to the state of Arunachal Pradesh, and it's just so good to be a part of Sitara's family. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Professor Hariharan, joined as Professor of Practice in Sitara. In fact, I am the youngest, 124 days old in Sitara. Basically, earlier worked as Executive Director of MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. I bring in, a lot of experience on the ground, especially in the areas of blue carbon, mangrove restoration with community participation, and also in the areas of nutrition. Here in IIT, I see a lot of scope for taking a lot of technologies along with the people to make life better in the rural areas. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon all, and thanks for coming to this wonderful function. I'm Penan Chinnasamy. I'm a hydrologist by training, and I do a lot of GIS, remote sensing, data science also for rural development. The core is that the data that has been used for the policy and advocacies for rural development has some issues, some lags. So we're trying to see how we could improve it. And I was thanking my old students because they helped me change from a water person to a data person. So I'm very happy and thankful for them. Thanks.
So very good morning or good afternoon. I think we are on the juncture of it. I'm Charu Chandra Korde, and basically a structural engineer, civil engineer by profession. Practicing structural engineer, had been into mega infrastructure projects before joining Sitara. And at Sitara, we are executing rural infrastructure related applications wherein sustainable construction materials can be explored. Primarily championing the area or anchoring the area of bamboo, use of bamboo into construction. And the whole idea that goes behind is that why should cement and steel at all even enter the rural areas when most of the constructions that are there in rural areas can be done with bamboo. So that is what my core research area is. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Parmeshwar Udmale. I'm an assistant professor at Sitara, completing 4 years and few months more. So that means I know only 10% of Sitara. And then I hope that this is 40th anniversary of Sitara, and then I will be seeing 50th, 60th, and probably 70th also. So my and then my core areas of expertise are agriculture, water, and disaster management. And mostly I use the Sitaraj approach in field research, mostly focusing on transdisciplinary research. We had prepared slides for 3 minutes talk also, but that is not option here. But yeah, that's short introduction. Yeah, thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Pankaj Siksaria. I've been here since 2018. And I'll just 3 broad areas that I'm interested in and work in. One is what's broadly called science and technology studies, which are the sociological studies of science and technology. So academically, using methods in history, anthropology, philosophy, sociology to actually study engineers like in an institution like in IIT Bombay and Sitara. The other group that we have is a small group called the Environment and Ecology Research Group, where there is some research on in the PhD domain, but also trying to do activities on campus with students, with faculty, bird watching, tree walks, and things like that. Also documenting the campus biodiversity, which is very rich. And the third another interesting thing that I've been involved and we created informally is the Charkha Studio, where as part of the course I teach and otherwise, a lot of students are learning how to spin on the Charkha. And that has been quite a fascinating experience, both for me, but also for the students. So these are broadly the 3 areas that I kind of work with. And of course, Sitara has facilitated that. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Amit Arora. I joined Sitara back in 2013. So I'm 12 years old that way. My focus areas are agriculture value chain analysis. I want to understand in India how it works. Second is, and that essentially leads to issues like post-harvest management in India. So that's also another interesting area that I'm currently working on. Something that I have borrowed from my previous or past life, my master's and PhD was largely towards biofuels and biorefinery. So I'm still continuing that. Bioenergy is something that I still work on intermittently. How to convert waste into wealth and now into health products, that's another interesting area. That connects me to health and nutrition. And so I'm working with Professor Agnihotri in that area. So yeah, maybe later we can talk about what kind of interventions we are making in this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Priya Jadhav, been here since 2012, and I work in energy for irrigation. And I'm an electrical engineer, and one of my pet projects or my favorite things is my work in Unnat Maharashtra Abhiyan, which is to bring engineering back to more societal or application-oriented kind of a curriculum rather than the theoretical abstract stuff we have right now. So, thank you.
Namaskar. Myself, Anand Rao. As you know, we have a group of toddlers and teenagers here. I joined in 2006. I work in the general area of energy, environment, and climate change. I'm really sorry to all my colleagues that they had to forgo their presentations, but there are some posters the PhD students have put up outside, so during the lunchtime you can look at those and get an idea about what kind of research is happening in Sitara, look at their websites as well. So thank you for the cooperation, and we'll proceed with the next program. Thank you. So now I would like to request Professor Kedare to again come back to the stage for a special occasion. So we have 4 of our earliest research staff here attending this program. They came all the way specifically for this. So I would like to request Chandrakant Turare, Vijay Patil, Kailas Gadak, and Dr. Suhas Zamre to be here. I would request Professor Kedare to felicitate these earliest champions within Sitara. Dr. Suhas Zamre. Vijay. And Kailas. So a quick group photo with 4 of them. Thank you so much. So, Professor Kedar skipped in between and then you missed it. So with that, I'll hand it over to Professor Amit to conduct the third panel. I think we are almost on time for the third panel, so.
Okay, good afternoon. So now that we have seen our whole journey of Sitara in last 40 years, and briefly we have understood our current faculty members, what they are up to, how we are taking this particular mission forward. I would like to now shift the gears a little bit and want to understand from our experts that what should be the future directions for Sitara. And for that, we have experts sitting here, and I would like to welcome all of them and invite them one by one. So we'll start with Professor Milind Datre, Deputy Director, IIT Bombay, is faculty in Mechanical Engineering. Professor Rupendra Bhandarkar, Dean SCR, also faculty Mechanical Engineering. Looks like we have Mechanical Engineering domination. So please have a seat, sir. We have Professor Sharad Lele, a tree fellow. He's also alum of IIT Bombay and our reviewer of Sitara academic program. Please join, sir. We have, so unfortunately, Dr. Anita Thampi couldn't join. I think she had some flight issues, so she had to cancel her program. So she is not joining us. So in addition, we have Professor Shambhu from IRMA. Please welcome, sir. Dr. Bharat Kakade, our alum, and also I think he is very helm of one of the largest NGOs in India called BIAF. So please welcome him. And we have Dr. Manik Dave. He's also our alum, and he is Our administration position is Maharashtra. Would love to hear, inputs from him as well. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and welcome again once more. So I know we have very limited time. We have just 1 hour, and the topic that I have been given, I mean, they can speak volumes on that, and everybody has years of experience when it comes to, academic side of it, social side of it, or even when you talk about future. So I would like to request all of you that, and just for benefit of audience, so I already shared a couple of questions with them so that we can save time on that, and they can be very specific on the question that we have planned to ask. So question is, now that we have reached this stage of 40 years of Sitara, what should be our future direction? That's the first part that everybody can take 3 to 4 minutes to answer. After that, in round 2, if I may call that, round 2, I would expect that whatever hats they have been wearing for years, within that lens, how do you see this future journey of Sitara? So your recommendations, your suggestions, your directions will be really helpful. So that's the overall idea of that. And in conclusion, I will have one point to ask later, which I'll let you know later. So maybe we can start with the first open-ended question, future direction of Sitara. We can start from Professor Shambhu.
Good afternoon. I was hoping to be much later, but anyway, thanks for this opportunity. In terms of the ideas on curriculum, partnerships, and academic depth, I think, 40 years and then looking possibly at the next 10 years to start off with, and probably more. I think this is a concern that would be there for many institutions that are roughly of the same kind of age. I come from an institute that's about 46 years old. One of the critical issues sometimes is the lack of sufficient collaboration with similar like-minded institutions. So when I was spending a bit of time at Sitara, I was very excited to see the work which was also spoken of in terms of the fieldwork component. IRMA also has a fieldwork component. And it's a bit strange that these two institutions have never had a discussion on how to do fieldwork, on which I think both institutions have the capacity to be the leaders in this space and help many other kinds of institutions. So the first thing I would like to look at Sitara in the next few years is to be a bit more connected, not just with immediate activities, but like-minded institutions across the country, which can, take up thematic issues and then provide newer knowledge that's required for today's context. And I think that's much more required today because rural India today is very different from what it was 10 years back, 15 years back, 20 years back. And I was taking a course on rural livelihoods recently, and I found that what was written 10 years back is no more applicable. And I think this soul searching has to happen not individually, but in a more collaborative manner. And this also impacts a little bit on issues of curriculum. I think the new education policy has a lot of opportunity to talk of, entries and exits at different points in time. So can we actually move towards this kind of direction where new knowledge is created in collaboration? So that's the first point I'd like to make. The second is, while technology is clearly the focus of the institution, I think it's important to situate technology within the larger frame of knowledge and knowledge creation. And this knowledge creation technically is about science and then technology, but more, I would suggest, on looking at innovation, which can be a bit more broader in some sense. And I think a great need in India today is actually to help create multiple rural incubators. And these incubators don't have to be in in cities like Mumbai or other kinds of places. But again, in the spirit of collaboration, can we work with, say, a BIF and, collaborate to create those rural incubators in multiple places? And so you move from technology to Social innovation, again, is a major theme that I think Sitara has a lot of potential to try and lead this conversation on social innovation, rural entrepreneurship, rural innovation, etc. So maybe I just leave, I could come back later with some more ideas. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Professor Lele, you want to take it further from here? Thank you.
Well, I was going to come in on the sort of more specifics of what kind of a space Sitara should be in the second round. I'd like to use the first round to reflect a little bit more broadly. I am an IIT Bombay graduate, but as my father used to tell me, you're not really an engineer, which is indirectly true because I've taken a deviation through environmental studies into sort of governance questions, public policy, and now working as also an activist scholar on the ground, but not through technology-led change, but rather through institutional-led change in the ground in Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and so on. I think it will be useful to reflect on the name of Sitara and giving us a clue as to what is the worldview through which Sitara has come, which is the technology application for rural areas, and ask the question, why rural areas? And I wanted to link that with Shirish's very pithy statement that technology development to address people's needs as the kind of the primary focus, people's needs. And people's is a very broad statement, right? It is not specifically saying rural or urban. So why rural? So I think if you reflect on the question as to how people's needs are articulated in society, how do we rise to the top, and therefore how do engineers or engineering education respond to which needs to address through innovation or through training and so on. We see that in the conventional assumption, the assumption is that the market is the one that articulates the needs. So you've got so-called companies that are meeting people's needs through products, and companies will then hire the engineers and set up whatever R&D or production lines in the direction of whatever people's needs are articulated through the market. And then clearly Sitara's focus on the rural areas means that the market is not the correct or adequate or complete provider of information in terms of what are people's needs. And that specifically rural people's needs are not well articulated through the market, which is why you need a separate Sitara which channels engineering education or technology innovation that will address these needs that are not being articulated through the market and through the corporate sector kind of chain. And I think that's a very important point for us to keep in mind, that and this issue remains, and it's not specifically about rural areas. One thing that I wanted to flag is, looking forward, the rural-urban divide is going to diminish. Already we are talking about rural-urban, we are talking about the reach of the modern economy into the rural area is dramatically different from Karzat of, say, 40 years ago. Dramatically different. And we see that in our work in the Adivasi belt of whether it is Gadchiroli or Bastar or Begachak and other parts of central India, that this reach of modern technology is just phenomenal. Not just the mobile phone and this thing that everybody talks about, but even Jal Jeevan Mission, dams, electricity, solar PV based pump sets, bore wells associated with that, and so on and so forth. The reach of modern technology is just phenomenal. The shape and form that it is taking is questionable in terms of what goals it is actually meeting or not meeting. And therefore, I think this slight redefinition of the mission over the next 10-20 years will be required, where it is not necessarily rural areas. It is about neglected areas. It is about marginalized areas, about marginalized needs, marginalized, therefore, communities whose needs are marginalized voices. And in that, it's not just a community. It's about, if we said that the goal was to produce, I think the wording that was used also was sensitive engineers. I think Milind used the word sensitive engineer. The starting formulation perhaps has been socially sensitive engineer. The person who goes, spends 3 months in the field to understand the rural area and its needs is primarily a socially sensitive engineer. Slowly, I think it has evolved. I think original assumption was appropriate technology by definition is environmentally sensitive. If it is built on local resources like bamboo or local resources like addressing local needs through local resources, it's almost by definition environmentally sensitive. So uski ज़्यादा कोई चिंता करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. That may have been the sort of initial assumption, but I think that also needs to be now reformulated, brought to the top in terms of a socially sensitive, environmentally sensitive, and of course, therefore, politically sensitive engineer. I think that part needs to be strengthened much more in the sense of why do certain needs not rise to the top and why do other needs rise to the top, number one. And who shapes the definition of needs and wants? I think this is now going to become an absolutely crucial question. It's no longer about needs. The majority of technology innovation that is happening, whether it's in the country or abroad, is not addressing needs. It is addressing wants, and it is creating the wants and then fulfilling them, in various ways that provide certain benefits to certain sectors while leaving other genuine needs unaddressed. So the political question of why, a politically sensitive engineer is also going to be part of that target. And you see this journey partly in Sitara already. The launching of a technology for development program, and therefore the move from just socially sensitive engineers to what Milind said as developmental practitioners. And then you have a master's in development practice program also. So then that's clearly not just technology focused. So I think that journey has already begun. And how do we strengthen and broaden that journey, I think would be the primarily the question as we go forward. I'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I would, sorry, I'm just shifting this from here to Dr. Kakade. The reason is, so he's now sitting in a position in an NGO where, his view is going to be quite interesting for us to know, how Sitara should now, if I may want to use the word, leap from here to the next level after hearing both Professor Shambhu and Professor Lele. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. It's interesting to speak in front of gurus, where you got this training, and that training was not very easy. Shifting a professional, development professional already into practice, to theory and to research and to methodical way of thinking. It was tough for both sides. Well, thank you for the question. I would take it forward. Very briefly about what we do at BIAP. At present, we have presence in almost 1.1 lakh villages, and last year's outreach was about 4 million families through various programs. And the core is technology. Most of the people, they are aware of two great revolutions happened in India. One was Green Revolution and second is White Revolution. Both revolutions had the basic input of technologies. The second revolution which I referred, White Revolution, everyone is aware of Amul and everyone is aware of NDDB and the contribution of Professor Kurian. But the grassroots contribution for this revolution was BIAP. And that is usually not known, and it is primarily because the people in marketing and people who are taking the product to consumers, they are known, everyone knows about the product and about the technology and about the people behind it. But BIAP actually transformed through a very simple technology the entire genetics of the country. Whether it is indigenous breeds or exotic breeds, the production levels from about 1.5 liters to 2 liters to more than 8 to 10 liters on an average, and that actually created the revolution in country, and today we are the top milk producing country globally. So the technology behind it was very, very simple, but nobody had thought before that. So it was basically creating a cold chain using very simple technique. A small cryo container was designed, 3 liter cryo container, which can actually contain the liquid nitrogen and which can actually carry the straws from lab to field for the doorstep service. So that was the major contribution, and because of that, the breeding of the Indian livestock could happen at the doorsteps of the farmer. And with the collaboration of BIAP, literally with all the state governments, central government, and together it was all transformed. It's a very simple technology. The one which I just saw, I was in Gadchiroli last month, and it was again very interesting to quote here, and that this will be a very relevant example. I visited one of the project area wherein the migrant tribal people in one of the remote village in Gadchiroli, a project was designed to convert or to revive their traditional water conservation structure called bodi for storing water and for irrigating their small parcel of land. So that now the migrant people, they are able to fetch 1 to 1.5 lakhs of income, they are well settled. Now, when I visited there, so they were actually cultivating vegetables, they were rearing fish, they were earning good amount of money, and then I saw some instrument hanging on the shade which was created on the side of that pond, that body. Then I asked that farmer, what is this? He said, this is CCTV camera. I did not expect at all. So the CCTV camera was fixed there by the farmer without any kind of interventions from BIAP people. I asked why you have this thought of this CCTV camera in fixing it here. No, he said, I have very good fish in pond, and there is usually theft of such good fish in the village. Anybody can come and take it away. So I fixed it here. Then I said, from where you sourced it? He said, I have mobile. I ordered it from Amazon. I said, how did you fix it then? You ordered, you got the product. Then I saw the video, a YouTube video, and I fitted it. And see how technology is penetrated in the villages. And there is very thin line now between what is accessible, available in urban areas, and that is available in rural areas. So without understanding with the kind of access, without having appropriate program design, if people like us go and talk to the communities, we will miserably fail. Unlike just 10 years before, we can go talk great about technologies, talk great about transformation and all that. Everyone would very quietly listen and accept what we say. Today, things have dramatically changed. So, the development professionals now henceforth will have to be very, very conscious, alert, and at the cutting edge of what is happening globally. Because they also have global access like you have. And hence, the demand henceforth, and the very important point, it will be very difficult for me to differentiate between first question, second question, and then I can, the residual matters can be dealt with in the second round. But I won't be able to differentiate. So, just 5 years before, in BIAP we have like programs for communities. There are several programs. But we never had thought of a program which 3 years back we had to conceive, and we had to be actually available for particularly this kind of need in the communities. So the communities with whom we work, they are vulnerable, they are in remote areas. So that program is disaster management, disaster response. 5 years before, we haven't even thought of, we were working on climate action, climate change, mitigation, resilient varieties and resilient programs, and mitigation measures in livestock and water, or land degradation neutrality, all of that has been there. But this was not there because every year in one of the or couple of the project areas today, there are extreme events happening. So we had to respond. We cannot say that this is not my work. For people, everything is very, very important, critical. So we have to design a program. So 2 programs in last 2 to 3 years, we have to design newly. We have to learn and we have to then come forward and respond to what is required today. So today's communities, typically for whom we are responsible and we work, it is drastically changing. The pace is unknown to us. Whether it is the climate impact on communities, whether it is the requirement of education. Education, again, very tricky. Many a times, children are better educated in the villages because of very typical unfortunate condition of the schools in many areas. They are better educated on their own than what they are taught in the schools. And the kind of education required for this education system, thanks to new education policy, a lot of flexibility is brought in. But there is a huge requirement of transformation of education at that level. And the demand which is there, the aspirations of young generation which is there, is very, very different. And hence, we have to start from there. Another, the second program which I was mentioning, please stop me whenever you feel like. Typically, we used to design programs in the past, enhancing the income of the people. I'm just taking quotes from some of the programs, by 25%, 30%. And then later on, it came to doubling the income and all that. Then there are surveys now recently, and we also have conducted nationwide surveys. 30%, 50% doubling doesn't work today. What is required as minimum consumption for the people or minimum expenditure for the people, it is not less than 1.5 lakh rupees for a family, typical family. And if you talk below that, you are irrelevant. So one has to talk about an income and not annual income or not on 6 monthly or seasonal income. You have to talk monthly income. And hence, we had to create an innovation center. Today we have created an innovation center wherein we have to, we need to actually demonstrate the monthly income patterns which can be demonstrated for the rural people, that if you spend something and then you need to earn this level of incomes. So it cannot be less than 25 to 30,000 rupees per month for any common families. So we have to have programs which will talk about this, which will fetch income. And hence, as we know the agriculture pattern and then land holding, and I don't need to talk about these things, and water scarcity, water quality, soil quality, all of that is a large scale issue, and we have to tackle that. So the bell is this is first or last bell. So anyway,
so
I'll
just
stop here.
You can still add one point, because the larger question we are dealing with here is, how do you see future of Sitara, say your golden jubilee and then a decade after that? So we can just summarize that in a minute. That will be helpful.
Sure. I'll summarize. So basically, why I narrated this is that there's a drastic and dramatic and very fast-paced change happening in the ecosystem, number one. Number two, the theory and practice, the deeper engagement of students at the level of the demand. So the demand and this supply has to be very strongly integrated, connected, or else the pace can be lost. So very rapidly that connect, and rightly mentioned by Professor Shambhu, at least 8 to 10 students of IRMA we host for their field immersion program every year. And they do fantastic work, and we have today, I think, at least 25-30 IRMA people, excellent work they are doing with BIEP. And we also have very good Sitara students doing good work, but we need many more Sitara students, and hence that connect will have to be enhanced. So I look forward for that enhancement in the connect and integration. But as far as the Sitara students, the need for future would be catching up with that requirement from the demand side. And that is very tricky, that is very rapidly transforming. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So I think what we will do is, for second question, which is going to be essentially on 3 components. How do you look at academic strength of Sitara? How we can be more socially relevant, and how do we also be future ready? I think we'll discuss that in the second part, which will give us more brainstorming at that point. So I would like to invite Dr. Manik. You can stay close to the question that I'm requesting you to address. And you have administration role to play, very important role. You are alum of Sitara IIT Bombay, so we look forward to your inputs.
Thank you, sir. So actually I'm fortunate because I have seen both the sides, academic side and the administrative side. So I joined here as a BDO, and at that time when I listened the criticism against the government in the coursework, so I was feeling very sad ki how the discussion happens and all that. But when as I learned here from different technologies and knowledge, and the question in my mind ki why the government, generally administration, major stakeholder is the government, why government is not ready to accept that or to implement that one. So for future of the Sitara, my question is that ki dissemination of this knowledge in the government sector, who is the major stakeholder in the rural development. So we have to think on that, ki how we can, Sitara can go ahead in collaboration with the government or the stakeholder institutions in the rural development. And second thing, because government generally asks for the scale. So when we approach to the government with particular technology or any intervention, the first question is how, at which places you have implemented that and how, at how much scale. I know ki Sitara can't go up to the scale because it's mainly the knowledge partner. So in my opinion, Sitara's major role with all stakeholders in the rural development as a knowledge partner. So that role, if we take it forward, I think it will help a lot to the nation, because when Sitara will be 60, the nation will enter in its century. So that will help a lot from the administration point of view. Major role of Sitara as a knowledge partner. One more point I want to add, ki not only the technology, but now the Sitara's role we can enhance up to the methods, processes and policies. Because only technology is available, but the other processes at the governance are still, there is a lot of gap, which Sitara can address in better form. So we can enhance our scope from technologies to methods, processes and policies. So that's my opinion for that.
Thank you. I just have a quick follow-up question on that. So one of the problems that faculty in general in elite institutions or tier 2 institutions face is, how do you interact with government? What is the face that should help us do that? We have been able to do this because we have champions, fortunately, in our center. Professor Agnihotri, Professor Milind Soni, so they have direct contact, Professor Shah. So this is why we are able to do this. But in general, how do you see this happening?
Actually, that interaction initially requires a lot of efforts. So I just recall when Soni sir was there. So there was a study on the water supply scheme in Raigad district. And sir was asking me whom to present this, so that it can be implemented or looked by the government. So at that time, I realized that exposure to the Sitara, whom to present that, who can take the decision. So at that time, we invited our rural development minister and secretary to the Sitara first time. So they realized what things are going to happen here and how this center will help in the rural development. So that initially it requires a lot of efforts, that I agree, for any bureaucrat or the even non-officials also. But once they understand that one, it will help a lot. So that I am realizing in different sectors, because it may be in water supply or it may be in livelihoods. So initial that breakthrough is a little bit tough. So, but we have to keep patience. That from the Sitara side, I will see that patience we will require to for that breakthrough, and then we can go for a better outcome from that one.
Second part of the question, I can request you to also elaborate how practically it should be done for us, so we can move forward in this.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yes. So I'll now move to Professor Atre and Professor Bhandarkar, those who are at leadership role here, and so they can give us better understanding of how Sitara, as a small part of institute, can get into the mainstream, which we always feel that it's not there as yet. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. First, congratulations to Sitara for having completed 40 years. Since I was a student here, that time Sitara got formed in 1985-86, around that time. And I knew the backside of mechanical department where it was housed in the initial stage. Second, somehow I missed the mail from you, so I kind of just sort of made my thoughts here. But whatever it is extempore. I'm sure that they'll be more realistic then. So first, I'll say Sitara has two brand names, very big brand names, and I'll say they have not yet utilized that. One is IIT Bombay, second is Sitara. I'm not sure if those students who come to IIT Bombay, those who take admission to IIT Bombay, everybody knows about Sitara. So that is possibly the state of student right inside the campus. Not sure. Of course, the aim was they were to publicize so much, but I think as student of IIT Bombay, everybody should know what's happening in Sitara, where it is located, so on and so forth. In 2005 and 6, nobody knew where Sign was. And now everybody knows right in the first year where Sign is. So that's a huge difference that happened in a startup ecosystem, which I think has to happen in Sitara. Second thing is, both director and myself had offered agricultural engineering to Sitara, which we believe that it should be taken by Sitara, but somehow that could not go ahead. And when I say agricultural engineering, is from everything, from rural farmers, livelihoods, etc., etc. And of course, all coupled with technology. So as I believe right now, only IIT Kharagpur offers agricultural engineering, and no other IITs actually give those degrees, and therefore IIT can play a very huge role in this thing. And being in Mumbai, as it is, we can play a very important role of offering such courses, and I'm sure it will be very popular also in the time to come. Now, so many technologies have come, and all this technology in every department actually should get connected to Sitara, according to me. So we've got a GIS, we've got AI, we've got all the number computation possibilities, remote sensing, So can all this technology not get connected to Sitara? And we got an associate professor's position, and there, of course, a lot of professors are working with Sitara. Can it be made more active? That is the thing, and Sitara professor usually will be a different nature, stature, everything as compared when you see other professors, they have to be very passionate. And that is what passion I have seen everywhere as earlier Dean R&D, now as Deputy Director, that they're always driven by a purpose. They're not bothered so much about gain, whatever that happens otherwise, but they're more worried about students, more worried about impact, so on and so forth, which has to happen, and that's why they will be different. The fourth thing I think I will say from IIT Bombay's perspective, we have to offer a course for all the students which should come from Sitara. Possibly, I don't want to call it, but Sitara 101 or something like that, which every first year student should take it. Maybe a half semester, but they should, because of which they will get connected to Sitara, they will know what's happening in Sitara. And I'm sure some 10% of all those students would like to be attached to Sitara, and that is something I believe we can start thinking about it, but we need to have a Sitara 101, the full semester course or at least half semester course, because of which so many activities that are happening, student would like to do that thing. We're also talking about social internship now, and that is at the end of first year, where Sitara can play a very important role. And as we already talk, when students come to IIT Bombay, they have come through this grind of coaching classes, 10th, 11th, and 12th, and they have completely lost the touch with the outside world, which Sitara is the only place I believe in IIT system can offer. They can actually do social internship where Sitara can play a very important role with our alumni sitting down everywhere. They have to go to their home places where they come from, but can we do something at their home places where they can do such activities? We can give a project, we can get it connected to a local alum, so on and so forth. But that will be a huge activity Sitara can play. So Sitara 101 social internship, I think, has to happen. Can we offer Sitara minor? Right now, I don't think we have a minor course. We have an undergraduate minor right now.
So we have one minor graduate and one minor current student.
Okay. Popular, but I think that will become popular when we have Sitara 101, because students don't come to know in the second year at all. By the time they realize they are in third year, and then they are driven in a different direction altogether. So that is something I believe. And the last thing, as a deputy director, I would like Sitara to be in every institute today in Maharashtra, let's say, to begin with. So we always talk about this hub and spoke model. So we have a hub here, but why don't I see the same in COEP? Why don't I see the same thing in VJTI or VNIT? And students there and professors there are not different than what we have here. And I'm sure we'll get some ambassadors down there also. The way we have BATIC almost everywhere today, I'm sure Sitara can be in all other institutes. We have to nurture them, mentor them, we have to visit those people. But I'm sure there are students and faculty members who will definitely be interested. We have to possibly train them to begin with. But I'm sure we can have this hub and spoke model of Sitara in almost every institutes. We can possibly start with Maharashtra or Mumbai and Pune first, but then we can see going on a national level, we can possibly have all the places. So I think these are things I believe that Sitara can do right now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for this food for thought. I think this will keep us busy for long. Especially Sitara 101 is something that we'll really look forward to. Thank you very much. Professor Bhandarkar, he is of course in leadership position, but I think it's a long-standing connection with Sitara. You have taught also, and we are research collaborators. We work together for one of the RUTAC projects, Chironji decorticator, which is becoming very popular now in front of at least PSA's eyes. So that's a great news. So I would like to hear from you as well.
I think many things have been said, so I'll keep it short. I mean, we should realize that people are aspirational. Second, technology has really percolated in the sense that the information exchange is so fast that everyone knows everything quite fast. So everyone is exposed to what is happening in the world, irrespective of where they are living. So all I can see is that the main problem in the future will be probably employment and livelihood. And I think Sitara has a role to play in the sense that we should be the vehicle to ensure that they are not only trained, but we have so many technologies which can be changed to be appropriate to those regions. And hence, we should be able to ensure that there is enough employment and livelihood in these areas. Of course, the second vehicle we should be is to expose, we should be the vehicle to expose our students to these areas. So for me, it is just this, the two roles, one exposure of our students and one training as well as technology transformation to help the people get livelihood. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. So before we move on to the second question, any quick reflection or thoughts on the same? Professor Shambhu, you want to come back?
Just a brief point on looking at 10 years ahead. So one, for Sitara to be the orchestrator of what is appropriate technology. I mean, it came in a certain kind of context in the 70s. But today we have similar kinds of terms. So what do we mean by appropriate technology? And can we actually, is it enough today, as Milind was saying, to be just a sensitive engineer? What else needs to happen to try and bring about social change? How do you bring that sensitivity in today's context? How do we get out of our elite tag? How do we relate to other concepts? I mean, I was just reminded that remembering the fact that this People Science Institute actually started off with IIT Bombay alumni. And People Science Institute is trying to understand today what is people science. It again was set at a particular kind of context. The traditional sciences and technologies conference started at IIT Bombay several years back or several decades back. So how do we look at these concepts of indigenous knowledge, people science, the people science movements that we're talking of within the broader context of appropriate technology? I think that clarity is required for us as we look at the 10 years ahead, broadly again in the role of technology and society.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to add a little bit to that. I think I said in the beginning that the needs of the people are being primarily reflected through the market in a certain way. And so the question is, who then delivers the other needs? So the technology innovation may happen in Sitara, but the delivery of, say, public service, public goods which are not going to be provided by the private, service provider, has traditionally been the role of government. And it's also been the role of government to regulate the private sector. Now, as you mentioned, that the interface, therefore, between Sitara has to be much more with the government rather than with the private sector, given that it is also trying to innovate for the unheard, unseen, unarticulated needs of communities, including, of course, public goods. That means two things, I think. One thing, especially looking forward, Milind said the largest employer of Sitara graduates is primarily civil society. And I think that is, we are looking backwards, because that was the trend. Civil society was a very big sector, say, in the last 10, 20 years or maybe 20 years ago. It's a diminishing sector as we go forward, and I mean civil society in the sense of the non-governmental sector as an employment opportunity. So we need to broaden our thinking and say that why is the government not the primary employer of Sitara graduates? I think the structure of government will change. As we go forward, this notion of a rigid governmental system where only Public Service Commission people are recruited and through only these processes they are recruited will change. There will be lateral entry into government. And I think that lateral entry is absolutely crucial, because you need to have, and not, I don't mean only center or state, because the concomitant changes that need to happen if the neglected or marginalized people's needs are to be articulated is local government and decentralized governance. And then the recruitment of whether it is engineers, development professionals, administrators, laterally into these spaces that are accountable to local self-government. I think that is going to be a crucial phase. It could, very likely could emerge in a certain way. So I think both being ready to, have professionals who will join those kinds of positions or services, and in a sense also lobbying with government to make that transition happen faster, where it's not just left to the civil society to pick up these well-meaning and socially sensitized engineers and then still basically working on the fringes, rather than working in the center of where public service delivery happens, is, I think, going to be absolutely crucial.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please.
Just on what Sharad was mentioning, I think a very good model to explore in that light is the model used by the National Rural Livelihood Mission to take in young professionals. And their first point of appointment is at the block level. So if you're looking at technology delivery, and if Sitara students can actually work at that kind of level with the government, bringing about transformative change, working with communities, embedding participation, I think that's an interesting opportunity to explore.
Just to add before you say, so I think Sitara, in whatever capacity we are able to do this, so we are able to now train CM fellows. They spend, I think Professor Param can tell, they spend 2 weeks here, more than that. So this is an opportunity for those who have field experience, but they are not so very sharp in terms of theory. So that is one opportunity that we figured out where we can also sort of contribute. So I think I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, please.
A very, very quick reflection. Since I am outsider, insider also, I have seen Sitara, the kind of flexibility they offer, the diversity of faculty, and the diversity of the programs. So that is the great strength. I don't think any structured institution can offer all of this in a small, within the empire of IIT, small initiative but growing so fast and diversifying so fast. So this is the great strength. And in addition to the conventional kind of opportunities and kind of the contributions which Sitara can make, there is new space very rapidly developing again in India is startup ecosystem. And we at BIAP, again, this is one more initiative we just started last year through Government of Maharashtra's recognition, Incubation Center. And I think IIT has excellent facility and the center here. But there, I think the children, the kids, if they are actually given that kind of exposure, that is another area, space, which they can flourish. And there is going to be wonderful opportunity. And I could see 2-3 students when I was here, they initiated and now they are rapidly contributing to this space. So one is, of course, the government delivery system, which is very, very important. And the current status of the government's hands, that is, that space can be very, very large. The other is civil society, of course. And civil society, unfortunately in India, all the efforts of creating institutions like IRMA, like rural management institutions, Sitara to a great extent, the students are finding their ways not in civil society in general, but in private sector, which is very, very good, no doubt about it. But civil society or the NGOs is deprived of the talent which should be made available for really bridging that gap between what is required at grassroots and what is available as knowledge and as the inputs and products and institutional backup. So all of this is, I think, important to be addressed. Yeah, that's the quick point I just wanted to share.
Thank you very much. I think one of the tricky problems that we always grapple with is when it comes to, for our students to be able to work with these, agencies, they always look for what is it that they are going to offer to us in terms of, remuneration. And that has no match compared to any, corporate. And this is a lingering problem. I don't know how to handle that. We can't say our students don't do this because, students are here as an IIT Bombay, so they will, of course, go for better placements. So this is not in our control. Can we do something with it? Probably we can discuss that, but has been a problem for us. And the other side, the flip side of it, what we are also able to see in a different way, that one can, give good training to these people, our students who are going to be ambassador for us wherever they go. At some point, they will come back in some form. So that's essentially what we have been trying to do. If we have enough time, we can shift to second question quickly. Second and last question, yeah. Very briefly, so we just want to understand now, very specific question on, if you look at all three aspects, when it comes to academic strength of Sitara, when it comes to how can we be more socially relevant, and also future ready, because I think today, in today's, this forum, we are discussing that the whole era is changing now. We are moving towards more AI, ML, and all that, high-end technologies and so on. How do we prepare ourselves for these kind of changes that are going to happen soon? And these are huge. These are step functions. These are not gradual changes. How do we keep ourselves ready? So I want to hear from government, from NGO, and from academia. So, yeah, please. We can start from you. Thank you.
Yeah. I feel one more important point, if you see the location, so in the 100-kilometer radius, there are 1,000+ villages around this campus. And you will find every type of sample here, right from urban, rural, tribal, drought-prone, flood area. So all problems that is considered with the rural development exists here. So my suggestion or in that case, in the future direction, if Sitara can set up the field labs in the nearby areas, so for the knowledge, building the knowledge base and giving the actually presentation to the stakeholders like the government, it will be much more easier because all the policy makers are in this area and they won't prefer to go somewhere in Vidarbha or in other state to see that one. So if we use that particular territory in that one, so I think with the academic point of view and the field point of view, it will help in future to build the knowledge base and disseminate the all either technology, policy or methodological knowledge to the government to disseminate up to the last mile of the rural development.
Thank you. Dr. Kakle?
Yeah, I'll just continue from where he started. This now concept of living labs, it's a very interesting concept. You can actually go work on a live problem in the areas. So we are already working on one living lab in Karnataka. It's a very interesting experience for last 3-4 years. So such living labs, if are created jointly by, say, for example, one institute, whether academic institute or the practitioners in private or NGO sector, and the center is involved, engaged fully into addressing those issues and problems, and then in the process, creating the solutions. This is one way wherein there is direct touch with the local issues in the rural areas. There is also engagement of the faculty and the students. Students, for their field immersion, they can actually continue working on those problems. The batch 1 comes, learns, the batch 2 comes, continue working on those problems, because in rural areas, it is not easy to go have immersion of few months and try and understand the complexities and go back and get satisfied that I have done something and I have learned something. It is a long-term kind of engagement which will pay back hugely to the center. That learning will happen, those solutions can come out slowly. Every year some solutions will come out. So this is one thing. The other very important aspect again, with the strength of Sitara. Sitara being hosted in the institutions like IIT and having access to literally all the departments and the institutions within institution, that access of knowledge, whether it is AI level or mechanical engineering or anything. I'm not mechanical engineer, by the way. So all of that is accessible to you. So any problem coming up from the demand side can be referred to all of this. In addition to such a already very diverse kind of faculty with a lot of experience, and you have labs, literally like the nutrition lab. I mean, that is set up and that is available. So food system is going to be major problem. Healthy food is going to be the future of the whole diet of the country, everyone in the global level. So there, and your labs already available. So the resources are available. So if you are able to make best use of these resources in a collaboration manner, collaboration within the institution and collaboration with the outside institutions. So integration, collaboration, and exchange of knowledge. This is the second point. The second strategy can help a lot in students getting groomed in that ecosystem, which is very diverse, wide, and having good exposure. The access to the whole gamut of the sector. Yeah, so these are a couple of things.
Thank you. I think I strongly feel that the point that you made about the affiliation with other departments, I think that's where we are lacking currently. And this is where we can think of, connecting with other departments in a more coherent manner. That would definitely help us to grow bigger. Thank you very much.
In fact, very quick point. In fact, I just, when we were discussing, I was just thinking, like, why can't there be a center, Sitara sub-center in Bayep campus, which will give opportunity for working on real life issues and very strong, the academics coming from Sitara. So why can't we think of something like this, offering some either short courses or long courses?
Yeah, so that echoes Professor Atre's point also, what you are saying, that it should be everywhere, every nook and corner. All institutes should have, and also NGOs and other agencies, I'm sure. Thank you. So now that we have 4 experts from academia, if you can, shed little light on the academic rigor part of it, because this is where, one should also not feel that we are an extension unit of IIT. That has to be, I think now, we have to be sort of change our mindset. We can be mainstream, just like any mechanical, chemical department. We should also be seen in the same view. And at the same time, we should be socially relevant and future ready. If you can comment on this, that will be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think just coming to the academic part and talking of future ready, there's a lot of discussions on new technologies and what it can contribute. I think an important contribution is to actually clarify what it actually means at the local level. And I think in some sense, cutting out the noise and saying this is what it means at a particular village or a particular society, etc. A key element to me is actually keeping the focus on innovation at the margins. Innovation is important, but the other part which has motivated much of Sitara's interventions is the idea of inclusion, the idea of participation. So how do we embed participation and inclusion in each of these things? I mean, we've been doing some work with the Jal Jeevan mission. And when we look at technology from the last mile, or what we say the frontline workers, how can we make a difference to them? How do you bring in transparency so that the dashboard is not just for the person at the top, but the dashboard actually makes sense and improves the lives of those at various other rungs? I think this connect is something that Sitara has, a great potential. And if it was to do this in collaboration with other institutions, because I think everyone's groping around in trying to understand what does it mean to translate innovation at the margins today. And there was a discussion about protocols in the morning. How do we develop those kinds of protocols? It's not just about an ideological statement, but if someone's on the ground, this is exactly what you might want to do in terms of research programs, in terms of protocols, and then perhaps leading to policy, etc. I think there's a lot of potential in that direction.
So I want to pitch my comments at two levels. One is maybe a more realistic level as to what Sitara can do itself internally. And I think what it needs to aim going forward, we have already discussed a lot of the aim, the broadening of aims, is become more interdisciplinary. And there I mean integrate social science in a more holistic manner into its work, become more diverse. I think this is absolutely crucial, and it relates to the traditional Shastri-Mestri divide in Indian society that, we see that reflected in the composition of Sitara, primarily in the faculty, and also to some extent in the students. And I think increasing the diversity, gender diversity, social diversity, economic diversity is absolutely central as to what Sitara should aspire for. We cannot speak to the marginalized unless we have people from that sector in the faculty, in the students, and spreading that kind of sensitivity. And the third, of course, sort of in a slightly lighter vein, less hierarchical, where we don't have to refer to, at least at the faculty level, as Professor X and Professor Y, and we can start first name basis, at least in the faculty and hopefully to the students. In my institute, a 25-year-old master's student still calls me by first name, so I think hopefully we can aspire for that cultural change very fast. But I want to come back to the question of Sitara's place in IIT. And I want to throw that actually question to the Deputy Director and the dignitaries we have here, because I think just as we say that there should be a Sitara elective for the students, what about a Sitara, or not an elective, as you said it was a core course for the students, what about Sitara core requirement for the faculty? And let me explain what I mean by that. I don't mean a course that they should take. But if we all agree that the reason for Sitara to exist is that there is an unmet demand, a demand that is not articulated through the market and therefore not met by the private sector in terms of technology, delivery, innovation, whatever it is, and that is why Sitara exists, then that actually applies to all the engineering disciplines. Sitara is then not a different center which sort of does its own thing, but it's a cross-cutting initiative that is providing a window to that unmet demand. And if we think of it, Sitara, like that, that means that every department should be mandated that 25% of their evaluation will be done in terms of how they meet this unmet demand or this marginalized demand or this hidden needs, technological needs of society. And if we put that filter on evaluation of all other departments, then the integration of Sitara into the work of all other departments as a way of reaching out and both understanding the demand and then delivering the technology innovation in a socially sensitive manner will be met. And I feel that structural change is required, because putting Sitara as another department, everybody, across the world, all efforts to create interdisciplinary initiatives and transdisciplinary initiatives which bridge the gap between science and society have failed because they have been ghettoized into science and society departments, science, technology, and society departments, things like transdisciplinary studies departments. And that is the failure of academia. And I think if we bring about a subtle structural change, it will go a very long way to actually address Sitara's mission. Maybe Sitara will dissolve at some point because all departments will on their own be then, doing this initiative, or Sitara will become like this cross-cutting, department which feeds information, innovation, and sensitivity back and forth between all of IIT and all of this, shall we say, the unheard components of society. Thank you.
I think very importantly, the students and the faculty members are important arm of any department. And let's accept this, the students will come to department unless there's a glamour. That is A. Second thing is placement, which is a very important word today, that the placement is do I get a placement? And even if we try to hide, under the whatever garb of anything, students have become very sensitive to placement. And Sitara will definitely have to find a ways and means of having some connection where good placements can be offered, and quality students will come, quality faculty members will automatically come. But most importantly, can we find an arrangement in IIT, possibly use POPs, use adjunct professor, use visiting faculty, use adjunct. We are open, we are so much flexible here at IIT Bombay right now that you can actually recruit anybody for doing proper placement of the student. But these are not going to be the private companies here. Possibly the clients are going to be different people. So somebody has to really study this aspect and see that every student in Sitara gets properly placed. But for that, we'll have to really have a supply and demand kind of thing. The problem statements have to come from different industries or even government, and those who will fulfill these problems. And every professor here, I like that thing that every professor has to work with a core department, technology department, and has to deliver goods. The student who works on this problem will definitely go as a, get placed, and possibly they don't have to appear for any placement. If we make that as a, target, that right in the problem solving projects, what they carry, what they do in the third year, fourth year, fifth year, whatever, the problem that it comes, wherever it comes from, maybe industry or a government, the student possibly will travel with the problem and implement it down there with an appointment. And that kind of MOU we can definitely do. IIT Bombay is in this situation today that we can talk with the IAS officers concerned, we can talk with the collectors, we can take problem statement from them, and possibly see that these people get placed when the solution gets transferred, when the technology gets transferred there. Second thing, I'll say we are talking about innovation, but I have not seen something like Atomberg, IdeaForge, that kind of a company which has to come from professors and students that come. I've seen, of course, there are startups in this domain, but they have not really crossed 25 crores or 30 crores or 100 crores or 1,000 crores. Unless that happens, and this takes some time. That has to happen at some point in time. We have spent enough time here now in more than 40 years now. We have to have an IPO, we have to have a unicorn coming out of from Sitara, because the demands are so much here that unless that happens, that students are driven by these things right now. So I think students should get driven. So the placements, startups, innovation, and the professor step change also has to, he was talking about faculty member. I think that when the faculty member joins IIT Bombay, he's at 35, year of 35, and he's possibly thinking about his future. Has he delivered any impact till the time he has come to IIT Bombay? Because ultimately entire Sitara is driven by impact. So the professor have to have, we have to see some kind of seeds when the professor, we interview them, because the professor joining this department also will be different than any other departments. So they should have somewhere shown that inclination earlier, because of which they have joined Sitara. So, but as I said, more and more POPs in adjunct and visiting can be utilized, and we should see that the students get properly placed, which I'm sure will get in a circular orbit then, and more good students will also join this place.
Okay, I think this is, I'm assuming I'm addressing the last question on how, Sitara can be, what are the actionable items?
With your Dean ACR
No.
you can also add something.
No. So what I felt was, at least I had three ideas. That one, I think Professor Atre already mentioned, exposure of all students to Sitara, some way or the other, that is one. Second, Sitara is probably the only program which has this rural immersion kind of program. It's a 2-month program, of course. Probably you can think of extending it to a semester. One of the things is what I already mentioned, learn the aspirations of people and figure out how to meet those aspirations rather than telling that I know what is good for you and I'll tell you what is, rather than that what you think is good for you, but I will figure out how do I do that. And third, I felt was something he already mentioned, but which I had thought of in a different way. I thought you should have a course maybe in your 3rd semester or something where maybe led by a Sitara faculty, but have 10 other faculty from other departments which investigates a range of technologies that IIT Bombay already has, and then brainstorms on how we can make it meet those needs that you have already figured out during your immersion. So you involve everyone to, to figure out whatever you have already done. So I thought if you make those 3 changes, a lot of things can change. So thank you.
Yes, sir. So almost coming to an end. Professor Anand has to tell me how much time we have. If it's already, it's beyond the time. Okay, now I could hear. Okay, so I immensely thank all the experts who took out the time.
Sorry to step in, but
yeah, please.
Clock is there, so and then people have to eat lunch also. So thank you so much, Professor Amit, for conducting this panel. May I request Professor Kedar, the director, to come here and felicitate the panelists.
Hostel 5. 279 to 80.
Okay, so there are a lot of department mates and wing mates and hostel mates. So the stalls being given to all the dignitaries are actually from Dastakar Andhra and sorry, which other place? I lost it words. Pankaj? All are from Dastakar Andhra. So they are all handloom made and made by artisans. So that is what we have. So thank you so much. Maybe you can have a photo with So I really apologize. I think this session was very interesting and maybe there are questions people have. So hold on to those questions. Are there any burning questions? Then we can take 1 or 2, but they will be.
Such an important.
Okay, so.
Give 10 minutes.
Okay.
5, 10 minutes. I'll pass on this. So one mic will keep. So my job is done.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Niranjan Kukate. I'm a MDP student over here. Yeah, my question is both to practitioners as well as to academicians. One is aspirations is something which was talked about. How do you mold aspirations in your practice, long practice that you have had as practitioners, to guide or mentor someone like me who has just started off in development field? And to the academicians particularly, how do, as sir was also mentioning, instead of telling what the aspirations is, how do you, help students to inculcate, break that barrier of lack of aspirations to look beyond placements and compensation point? So quickly, just these two questions. Thank you so much.
Do you have any expert in mind to answer?
No, it's.
I would like to. If you would like to take 2-3 questions together, that
Yeah, maybe just pull a couple of questions more. Sure.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Take me.
I think let's take 2-3 questions.
Okay.
Together. Fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you. No question at the back.
Hi, I'm Om Damani. Have been part of Sitara since 2005 and also taught courses. So there were 3 different, the middle presentation could not take place, but if it took place, you would see 3 distinct segments, the past, present, and the future, and somewhat disconnected in terms of the discussion. So my question to the panel is, as we talk about future directions, what is the difference between Center for Technology Alternatives for Rural Area and Center for Technology for Rural Area? Because the future is all the talks, all the questions, all the suggestions are about the technology for rural area. So that philosophical element, that perspective, that people-centeredness, that was part of the original vision of Sitara and what distinguishes it from any other rural technology center. Otherwise, fine, the market has expanded, it has gone from urban to the rural, the state has extended its service and whatever the way. So I would just like to comment on that contrast, that dropping, the silent dropping of alternative in the future discussions. What does it mean? What does it forward, and what are the implications? Thank you.
Should we take few more questions? One more? Okay.
Hi, I'm Yashashri. I'm a second year PhD student at Sitara. My question was perhaps because a lot of discussion is happening around UG and PG courses, but a little distant are the doctoral students because since my observation is a lot of people who come from a professional space to do PhD, and there are students who immediately get, start their PhD journey after MTech. But there is no kind of, induction into Sitara as such. So I feel that there should have an interdisciplinary, at least course or a part of the curriculum should have that embeddedness, at least at the doctoral level, because then we are sitting with MTech students and then we are going through the same process. So there's no differentiation and value addition to us at that doctoral stage. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'll respond maybe part of it and then, yeah, there's one more.
One more we are going to take? Okay, then please.
Hello everyone, I'm Kalyan, class of 2010. So Sitara also has a professional, component now, the executive education component for mid-career professionals. So my question is about, what aspirational value this component is offering now, and what value should it offer over next 10 years to attract mid-career professionals from non-profit sectors Currently, executive MBAs are more attractive for those people than, something in technology and development space. So what executive program in technology and development space can offer or should offer to mid-career non-profit professionals who are aspired to, get into leadership roles? Because where there, they required management, leadership, training, more than technology design, dissemination kind of inputs. So can these two be bridged, and how those could be bridged to create more aspirational values for those professionals?
Yeah, very important questions. It's also not easy to respond to the aspirations and to expectations within such a ad hoc basis and in one sentence, or it requires some deliberations, discussions, particularly the aspirations of the students. One was pertaining to placement, right? So I will start with that. Certainly, whosoever it may be, whatever background they may come from, placement is going to be very, very important aspect in anybody's initial phase of their career. Everyone would look for it. But then, while we take them through the course, to what extent we are able to bring in the kind of empathy, kind of exposure, other than a particular image, ideology, and idols in their mind. Can we break that? Can we give that kind of specific inputs while they go through the course? Can we give some kind of exposure while they go through the course? Then only that is likely to break. So unless why I came being, I did my master's in COEP, College of Engineering, Pune, and I was topper in the institute. But then I did not join mainstream. I did not go to typical engineering services or departments or private services through placement. Because I had exposure of working with Vilasrao Salunke and Anna Hazare, those were in that sector, and institute like Nan Prabodhini, who had given us space to think in a very different manner. So these three factors affected my decision of not going in mainstream, going through placement, and choose this path. And it's not me. There are many cases like me where these people have influenced. So one is influenced by people, other is influenced by ecosystem, and third is influenced by the demand. So can we identify that, right? Can we identify those things and bring that into, in a very subtle manner, rather than telling that you should have empathy, or professors are better placed in articulating it appropriately and taking it to the students. So in my view, these are the aspects, if you are able to bring in, things can break, barriers can be broken.
Yeah, so the question of aspiration probably is also linked to the issue of alternatives. So a typical aspiration is, to chase perhaps the established criteria of what is considered success, which could be, higher salary or whatever one looks at. But I guess one of the challenges is to actually encourage people to have dialogues with those who did not actually pursue this despite having those options for them. And I think some of the faculty have actually done this. We heard some of those stories earlier. Recognizing the fact that aspirations today are very different. I'll just give a small example. A couple of weeks back, I was visiting our students who were in the village. And just a week before that, they were facing an issue where cyclone was coming to the coastal part of Andhra Pradesh, and, the pressures from their parents to leave the place and go was so high. And then finally, we with the organization had to talk to them. The threat was not so high. Whereas the fact is, maybe 20 years back, the students would be there at that point if there was a disaster and provide relief. And today the students are almost the first fellows to flee away from the village. So, and that's not their problem alone. I think it's the pressure from the parents and society that creates this kind of challenges. So I think the issue of alternatives is so critical, unless that's made more visible, people do see that another world is possible. They get to interact with, I think Sitara has been inviting people to campus to talk about their visions of the world through seminars, but also by going and visiting and understanding their perspectives as well. And I think that articulation of the alternatives, there are organizations that are now talking about Vikalp. Vikalp is a very important part of the way we lead society. We could have a longer conversation on that, but it's very critical not to ignore that in the search for, making ourselves future ready.
I'll just second Shambhu's last point, which is that I think the slippage or the missing alternatives is really, for me, not missing. It is just that it is technology for those who are left out, and through that for an alternative vision of what society we want to be. And that speaks to the question of aspirations, because I think if Sitara has articulated in a more implicit manner what kind of a society they want to provide this technology for, one of the things that I have constantly encouraged is a more explicit articulation for a sustainable, equitable and democratic society, not just a society which is well developed, which is sort of a very broad and somewhat wishy-washy way of putting what we want to say. So I think very explicitly saying that we want a sustainable and equitable society for all, and therefore democratic, is absolutely central, because in that vision, and if we actually hold and cherish that vision and embody that vision in the work, in the curriculum, in the culture of Sitara, then it is easier to convince people, or not even convince, nudge people to kind of move in alternative directions that will feed into that vision. Because we have to acknowledge then, once we articulate that vision, that today India is one of the most unequal societies in the world, economically, societally, socially and otherwise. And in that context, then if we have an alternative vision, how can I aspire for a massive pay package when I'm actually talking about an equitable society? I think that question will then be driven home, and then people will reflect on it and make, I think, better decisions. So instead of becoming just preachy about it, I think we can sort of build that culture through which we all cherish that vision, build that vision, I think would be central. I think the question about curricula for the PhD students being introduced to Sitara is part of sort of some of the changes that I think the review committee made last year, that I won't go into too much detail. Hopefully the review committee report is also available with the students, or if not, the highlights can be shared. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a question for Upendra. Milind Atre has left, otherwise it would have been for him also. So there's been, what Sharat said, that unless other departments actually move towards where Sitara is too small, IRMA's too small, the scale of the problem is massive, to serve the needs which are not really met by the market. So what is it that keeps, and these things have sometimes come up, new faculty who have come to IIT have also asked this question in these strategy meetings, that if you want me to make impact, why do we want these, if you also say you want these nature publications, that's not going to happen. So anyway, I don't want to put it only on that one thing, but what is it that you think stops the departments from moving towards that direction? What do you think that the institute can do to move towards that direction?
So you think you want to ask a question why not everyone is getting involved with Sitara? Is that how?
No.
No.
I think the departments need to move towards a direction like Sitara. Right now, all the technology is very high-tech, blue sky research. The whole education is geared towards that. it's about serving the market. It's about these, even innovation. I mean, we had talk about innovation, etc. But there are so many needs out there which are unidentified. Which technology can serve. And that's not happening because of the way we teach students at IIT and undergrad. So how can IIT undergrad be made more like Sitara?
Okay, difficult, yeah. Okay, I think one part of the question.
I just wanted to add to that so that you can make a composite answer. We have a green shoot of some kind of a success, which I think Priya herself led, TDSL. Is it just as we make some courses compulsory, can a TDSL kind of equivalent be made compulsory for the students, whether they do it in their second year, third year, fourth year, doesn't matter. And then that, in terms of the person who guides the TDSL, can be given equivalent of this much teaching credit. I think that might crack the issue, because TDSL, where things have worked out, I mean, there's a clear example of someone from chemical engineering guided a TDSL, and today a big ICMR project grant is coming. So it's not something which is outlandish, it's doable. So we have to think in kind of policy terms that, okay, second, third year mein ek TDSL kar lo.
Okay. So I think at least from the students' point of view, something which was already mentioned, that about a course which everyone can take will hopefully sensitize everyone towards what is there. And I think there is also a thought, I think, which both Professor Atre and Professor Kedare mentioned, of having some kind of a rural immersion right in after their first year. So this hopefully should ensure students learn a lot more than just seeing other role models. But faculty is a far more trickier question. I mean, I'm sure the institute has worked out some metrics to, get social impact as one of the metrics for your career growth. But, they have seen a different life, and without, involving them continuously in a Sitara kind of program, I don't know how to change the mindset. And that is a very tricky question. But, some way, some people, you have to slowly bring people along, and I think that is when you cannot expect to change everyone, but I'm sure with some trickle, you get people along. Structural incentives, okay, let me think about it. I don't think I have a ready answer for that. So.
Okay, so let me come to rescue of my friend Professor Upendra. No, I mean, just to close the session. I don't think we can resolve these questions in such a short time, but there is enough food for thought that has come, and now it is time for food for stomach. So please join us for lunch. Thank you so much for deliberating all these important questions, which are going to be helpful for us to churn in further and try to understand what is our role going to be in future decades to come. So thank you so much for active participation, and we are looking forward to hearing from alumni in the post-lunch session. I know some of them have traveled long distances to be here. So that is something that is on hold. After the lunch, we'll have it. So thank you so much. And then we had said 1 hour for lunch. We'll try to see if we can come back in 45 minutes. But I'm sure there is a lot of catching up to be done. So by 2:50 or so, we'll try to be back in the hall. Thank you. We plan for a group photo. Okay. It's difficult. And I would also announce that students have put up some posters in the lawn outside. So while you are having lunch or while you are waiting for your turn for lunch, you can see the posters also. Group photo.